Chapter 4:10. The mountains and rivers were surrounded by clouds and mist. The scenery was beautiful and picturesque. After half a month, Chu Hen and Shi Lan came to the Thousand Crane Sect, a famous place for martial arts in the 100 Nations state. Fu Qin, Nongqi, Jishu, Hua Shui, Lu Qi, and Qi Ting came with them in the morning. The air in the Thousand Crane Sect was fresh, and the forest was surrounded by abundant nature essence. Tens of thousands of rays of light poured down, making the sect, which had 1,000 years of heritage, seem to be immersed in celestial mist and radiance. Quite a few disciples had already gathered on the Tao platform on the majestic mountain range for their morning training. The competition in the sect was extremely cruel. In this place, aside from talent, diligence was also very important. If they slacked off, they would fall behind. This Thousand Crane Sect is not bad. It's beautiful. Hua Shui's heart was filled with novelty as she stood on the stairway leading to the Thousand Crane Sect. Nongqi, Jishu, Lu Qi, and Qi Ting were also looking forward to it. Although Nongqi and Jishu came from Mount Kunliu, it was their first time visiting a sect other than Mount Kunliu. Even if it was just a small trip, they were still happy. Ever since Fu Qin left the 10,000 Beast Ridge, she had not taken the initiative to say a single word. Towards Chu Hen's choice, she was a little angry, but at the same time, she was helpless. Senior sister Fu Qin, don't be so cold all the time. You can't be angry all the time for such a beautiful girl. Hua Shui walked up and hugged Fu Qin's wrist. She smiled innocently and said, "Think about it. It's good for us this way. At least we don't have to run around like before, right? Sect Master Gong Yang runs to a different place every 2 days, and we have to chase after him every day. It's so tiring." Hearing Hua Shui's words, Fu Qin's expression softened. She sighed softly. In the past 2 years, the four of them had been running around almost every day. Once they found clues about Gong Yang Yu, they didn't even have time to rest. This was the main reason why Fu Qin wanted to complete this task as soon as possible. They were indeed tired. Senior sister Fu Qin, stay in the Thousand Crane Sect for a while. Perhaps sect leader Gong Yang will return to find us in a few days. If he returns, it will be better than us forcefully bringing Chu Hen back. Hua Shui continued. A smile that had not appeared for more than 10 days appeared on his face. She lightly tapped her right index finger on her forehead and said, "When did you, Xiaoya, become so glib? If this goes on, she won't be as likable as before." Hua Shui stuck out her tongue mischievously and smiled lightly. But seeing that Fu Qin was temporarily relieved, the pressure in Nongqi and Jishu's hearts was slightly reduced. To be honest, it was rare for him to come out of Mount Kunliu. It wasn't a bad choice to take a stroll outside and broaden his horizons. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener took it to heart. Chu Hen quietly listened to the conversation between Fu Qin and Hua Shui. He could more or less understand them before. Of course, this was still not enough to make Chu Hen put down all the matters here and choose to go to Mount Kunliu. In the end, he didn't owe the four of them anything. He also didn't owe Gong Yang Yu anything. Senior sister Shilan, all of you've returned? 2 disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect, who were in charge of guarding the entrance, gazed at Shilan and the others with surprise as they made their way up the stairway. Li Nanhai was slightly surprised and asked with bewilderment, "Why are the 2 of you guarding the entrance today? That's enough. Senior brotherly, isn't the recruitment of new disciples approaching?" Everyone in the sect was busy, so the 2 of us were sent to guard the entrance, said one of the disciples. Haha, guarding the entrance is pretty good. It's relaxing. Senior brotherly, stop teasing us. How is it? What's the situation at Myriad Beast Ridge? Li Nanhai smiled, glanced at Shilan and then answered, "We'll talk about this later. We have to report it to the higher-ups and elders of the sect first." After exchanging a few words of greeting, all of them ascended the entrance. The unfamiliar faces of Chu Hen, Fu Qin, and the others caught their attention. However, they were brought here by Shilan after all, so the disciples that guarded the entrance didn't ask any questions and allowed them to pass smoothly. After a short moment, Jade Seal Peak. Senior Sister Shilan, aren't we supposed to head to Xingyu Peak first? GC asked with a puzzled expression. Xingyu Peak was one of the 3 main peaks of the Thousand Crane sect, and it was an important base for disciples to report to the higher-ups after they completed their assignments. No matter when, the first-place disciples of the Thousand Crane sect that returned from assignments would definitely be Xingyu Peak. However, Jade Seal Peak was a place that was responsible for the registration of the information of the sect's disciples, and it was a place of logistics. Shilan's red lips parted slightly as she said, "All of you wait here. I'll go look for Elder Yu to obtain the tokens of new disciples." Everyone was slightly stunned, and they couldn't help but understand what Shilan meant. She intended to make arrangements for Chu Hen and the others before she went to do other things. "We aren't disciples of the Thousand Crane sect yet. How can we get the tokens of new disciples?" Qi Ting asked. "Haha." Li Nanhai chuckled and answered, "These tokens are temporary. Our Thousand Crane sect is extremely strict when it comes to the members of the sect. Those that aren't registered aren't allowed to stay in the Thousand Crane sect." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Nanhai said to Shilan, "Senior Sister Shilan, why don't you go to Xingyu Peak and report the information about the 10,000 Beast Ridge? As for Brother Chu Hen's side, leave it to me. I'll settle them down properly." Chu Hen nodded in agreement. "Teacher, go do what you need to do. We'll talk later." Shilan pondered for a moment before she nodded. "All right. I'll go look for all of you later." Soon after, Shilan left the Jade Seal Peak and headed in the direction of Xingyu Feng. After that, Li Nanhai went to look for the elders in management and asked for a few temporary disciple tokens, and he helped Chu Hen and the others complete a simple registration. Around half an hour later, it was a quiet and beautiful mountain peak. Even though this lesser forest peak isn't large, it has abundant spirit energy. "Are you satisfied with it, junior brother Chu Hen?" "I'm very satisfied. Thank you, Brother Li." "You're welcome. We'll be fellow disciples in the future, so don't treat me like an outsider," said Li Nanhai with a smile. Chu Hen faintly smiled and politely nodded. The scenery on Lesser Forest Peak was pleasant, and a medium-sized courtyard gave off a unique vibe. White cranes spread their wings, and there was even a waterfall in the distance. It was like a paradise in the mortal world. Chu Hen exclaimed with admiration in his heart. No wonder the sect is truly a place of cultivation. Compared to the filthy energy of the mortal world, only a place like this is a true place of cultivation. Junior brother Qi Ting, you and junior brother Chu Hen can stay on Lesser Forest Peak. Alright. Qi Ting laughed heartily. After that, Li Nanhai pointed at another mountain in the south, and then he gazed at Lu Qi, Fu Qin, and Hua Shui as he said, "The 5 of you can stay on Emerald Garden Peak. It's only 1 kilometer away from here." "Thank you." Fu Qin nodded slightly. "You're too kind." Li Nanhai was not an ordinary disciple. He also had the strength of the void-piercing realm. Although his character was sometimes impulsive, even though he was rather impulsive at times, his discerning ability wasn't bad, and he was able to discern that none of them were mediocre. There was absolutely no harm in befriending these people. "Right, all of you keep these temporary tokens." Li Nanhai distributed the tokens that he'd received from the managing elder. Chu Hen's brows raised slightly as he gazed at the token that seemed like a black stone, and he couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother Li, does this mean that we're temporary disciples of the Thousand Crane sect?" "Haha, you can understand it that way." Li Nanhai paused for a moment before he continued, "Our sect is very strict when it comes to recruiting new disciples. You can only become an official disciple after you pass a series of tests. Of course, with your strength, it's only a formality. If you don't want to participate in the tests, then Senior Sister Shilan can recommend someone for you, and you'll be exempted from the tests." Oh? She can recommend someone? Lu Qi was slightly surprised. Yes, but only Hall disciples have the qualifications to recommend someone. Senior sister Shilan is a Hall disciple. Everyone's interest was aroused, and Qi Ting took a step forward and asked, "How are the levels of the disciples of the Thousand Crane sect divided?" Li Nanhai nodded and explained without hesitation. The disciples of the sect are divided into the following levels: outer court disciples, official disciples, inner court disciples, hall disciples, and the 5 great core disciples. Outer court disciples are actually just in name, and they practically don't enjoy any treatment from the sect. Only official disciples can be considered to be linked to the sect, and they're able to enjoy basic cultivation resources. Inner court disciples are the backbone of the Thousand Crane sect, and they enjoy good treatment in the sect. Hua Shui raised her eyes and asked with interest, "Senior Brotherly, what level of disciple are you?" Li Nanhai smiled embarrassedly. "I'm only an inner court disciple." Inner court? Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. No way. You're only at the first stage of the Void Destruction realm, yet you're only an inner court disciple? I thought you were a hall disciple. Lu Qi was slightly doubtful. Alas. Li Nanhai sighed and shook his head. The conditions to become a hall disciple are based on natural talent and ability. Not only can one become a hall disciple after attaining the Void Destruction realm, but not all hall disciples are at the Void Destruction realm. For example, senior sister Shilan became a hall disciple at the age of 17, and her cultivation was only at the core transformation realm at that time. Becoming a hall disciple at the core transformation realm. That's right. The sect mainly looks at natural talent and potential when choosing a hall disciple. If you have great potential, the sect will nurture you with all its might. On the contrary, someone like me with low natural talent wouldn't be able to reach the standard of a hall disciple even if I break through to the Void Destruction realm. Thus, I can only be an inner court disciple. Li Nanhai's tone was slightly helpless. He was countless times more diligent than others to break through to the level he was at today, but there was still a gap between him and a hall disciple. This was the cruelty of the competition in the sect. Chapter 4:11. What about the 5 core disciples? Hua Shui's beautiful eyes were wide open as she asked with interest. Li Nanhai smiled, and his eyes were filled with yearning and hope. He said, "The 5 core disciples are existences at the top of the pyramid of disciples in the sect. They possess extremely great privileges, and they have priority in using all the resources and cultivation resources of the sect. If the sect were to elect a new sect master, it would be from the core disciples. Of course, some hall disciples with outstanding ability possess the qualifications to participate in the election for the position of sect master, but they're definitely much weaker than the core disciples. So that's why." All of them nodded, and then Chu Hen smiled and said, "So, the core disciples are actually reserve candidates for the position of sect master. Haha, you can understand it in that way. However, since the Thousand Crane sect was established, there have only been 5 core disciples." "Oh!" Becoming a core disciple doesn't mean that you'll be free of worries forever. Other disciples can issue a challenge to a core disciple, and once the challenge is successful, that core disciple can replace that core disciple's position. This has happened countless times throughout the history of the Thousand Crane sect. So, for the sake of not being dragged down from the highest point, everyone would cultivate desperately and ceaselessly improve themselves. Chu Hen was quite shocked when he heard Li Nanhai's explanation. The competition in the sect was so brutal. In this world where only the strong had the right to speak, everyone would do their utmost to climb up. The 5 core disciples were like 5 thrones. Perhaps the person sitting on the throne was the strongest today, but a new rising star might appear tomorrow and kick that person off the throne. Even though such a method was brutal, it really was able to motivate the hearts of others at all times. People were born from suffering and perished from peace and happiness. It isn't just the 5 core disciples, even the hall disciples would be eliminated from the rankings every year. For the sake of not being pushed down, everyone would do their best to improve themselves. Li Nanhai gave them a rough explanation of the ranking system of disciples in the Thousand Crane sect. Hua Shui asked curiously, "How strong are the 5 core disciples?" She was the one who asked the most questions, and she was like a curious kitten. "Very strong," Li Nanhai replied in a straightforward manner. Then, he continued, "Furthermore, the 5 core disciples all specialize in different fields. Even among the younger generation of the 100 Nations state, they are all top-notch existences. Just like the heavenly lock palm?" "Huashui, don't be so rude," Nongqi scolded softly. "It's okay, it's not a big deal." Li Nanhai waved his hand and shook his head with a smile on his face. "With the strength he possesses, he's probably at the top of the hall disciples in our Thousand Crane sect." What were the top few hall disciples? Hua Shui was slightly surprised. He hasn't reached the level of a core disciple? I've always thought that the 7 absolute prodigies are the strongest among the younger generation of the 100 Nations state. Haha, junior sister Hua Shui, you're underestimating the strength of the 100 Kingdoms province. It's true that the 7 absolute heavens pride are outstanding talents among the younger generation, but they're not the strongest. It could only be said that the 7 of them were given their titles based on their specialties. The palm absolute is proficient in palm techniques, and the spear absolute is proficient in spear technique. But in terms of overall strength, there are still quite a few people in each sect who are stronger than them. Li Nanhai explained. Chu Hen nodded his head in agreement. The people outside had indeed never said that the 7 absolutes of Heaven's Pride were the strongest. Within the various sects, there were also abnormal geniuses that could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Of course, this did not mean that the 7 absolute prodigies were weak. At least as far as Chu Hen was concerned, the strength of the palm absolute prodigies he defeated was inferior to the spear absolute Czi Yi, the saber absolute Langley, and the others. If Chu Hen were to fight the other members of the 7 absolute prodigies, his chances of victory might not be high as well. Do all of you have any other questions? Li Nanhai asked patiently. Everyone shook their heads. Yes, there's nothing else to tell you. All of you can stroll around the Thousand Crane sect for the next few days, and all of you can participate in the new disciple test together. Li Nanhai gazed at Chu Hen while slight praise and anticipation surged between his brows. Junior brother Chu Hen, I believe that with your ability, it wouldn't be surprising for you to directly become a hall disciple. I think very highly of all of you. Chu Hen smiled. I'll do my best. Lu Qi and Qi Ting were looking forward to it as well. As for Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua, they were only interested. In their opinion, they were only joining the Thousand Crane sect because of Chu Hen. They didn't care if they could become a hall disciple or not. After giving some simple instructions, Li Nanhai led Lu Qi, Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua to Emerald Garden Peak, that was a kilometer away. Soon after, Chu Hen and Qi Ting arrived at their residence. There were 8 rooms in the huge courtyard, and it was enough for 2 people. As expected of a first-rate sect. It's really nice. I was thinking of going to the Shura sect in a few days. Qi Ting said casually. Chu Hen was stunned. He smiled and said, You want to go to the Shura sect as well? Yes. I'm considering the Thousand Crane sect and the Shura sect. After all, the academies and martial houses in the capital aren't suitable for us anymore. After all, they were acquainted with each other in the past, so Qi Ting had some understanding of Chu Hen's past. He continued, How long do you intend to stay in the Thousand Crane sect? Why do you ask? Chu Hen looked at Qi Ting and asked. I don't know. Qi Ting shook his head and said with uncertainty, I don't think you'll be staying here for long. Is that so? Chu Hen smiled faintly and looked away. He looked at the steep mountains in the distance, and coldness surged out from his pitch-black eyes. Perhaps he would leave when he had the ability to destroy the Saint Star dynasty. In the afternoon, Qi Ting went to familiarize himself with the environment of the Thousand Crane sect. On the other hand, Chu Hen was meditating in his room. His handsome face was slightly solemn at this moment. The ruthless aura that came from the sacred winged heavenly flame bird in his body made him feel rather uneasy. Even until now, Chu Hen couldn't figure out why the sacred winged heavenly flame bird would appear in his body. Of course, Chu Hen knew that the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's strength was worlds apart from before. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to suppress that power with his current strength. Even then, it was like a flaming mountain range that could erupt at any moment. No one knew what sort of terrifying things would happen if he continued to stay here. Just at that moment, Chu Hen's mind moved. A strand of strange feeling was captured by him. Chu Hen's brows twitched, and he hurriedly stood up to open the door. Immediately after, a graceful young figure stepped into the courtyard's entrance, and walked into the courtyard. "Teacher!" Chu Hen shouted as he walked out of the door. Shilan's beautiful eyes lit up, and she asked in surprise, "You knew I was here?" Chu Hen was also a little surprised. Just now, he seemed to have sensed Shilan's arrival, but Chu Hen didn't deliberately release his perception. It seemed to be the so-called telepathy. "Why are you in a daze?" Shilan walked in front of him and gently patted his shoulder. Chu Hen shook his head, and with a smile in his eyes he said, "It's nothing. Are you done on your side?" And Shilan's beautiful eyes moved, and there were faint ripples in them. "Let me show you around?" Chu Hen naturally wouldn't refuse. "All right." Splendid sect was as beautiful as a painting. Chu Hen and Shilan walked side by side. Feeling the cool mountain breeze on their faces, there was an indescribable feeling of comfort. "You've grown a lot taller." Shilan raised her hand slightly, and gestured in front of Chu Hen. "Really?" Chu Hen touched his nose and smiled. "And, when I first saw you, you seemed to be a little shorter than me. Now, you're half a head taller than me." Shilan's figure was relatively tall, and her legs were slender and exquisite. She had almost no flaws. The current Chu Hen, standing by Shilan's side, no longer had that immaturity and childishness from before. Between his firm and determined brows was a steady and valiant aura that grew with each passing day. Looking at the young man in front of her, Shilan's eyes gradually changed. Even she herself didn't notice it. The other party was no longer a youth that she needed to worry about and protect. Shichen's silhouette slowly disappeared. Chu Hen, after all, was still Chu Hen. The two of them chatted for a long time. From leaving the imperial city to coming to the Hidden Wind region to meeting Qin Shi Shu Hua, Chu Hen told her everything. When she heard that Gong Yangyu casually passed the position of sect master to Chu Hen, Shilan was also very surprised. No wonder those four girls aren't ordinary people. So they're from Mount Kunli. Shilan suddenly realized. "Teacher, how much do you know about Mount Kunliu?" Chu Hen asked casually. Shilan shook her head. "I don't know much. Mount Kunliu is a sect in the victorious East State, and the victorious East State is closer to the central region. I don't know much about the situation there. However, out of consideration for you, it's not that easy to be the sect master of Mount Kunliu. In my opinion, you should wait for now. Maybe that Gong Yangyu will come looking for you in the future to take back the sect master token." "And I think so too. Gong Yangyu most likely wants to leave the token with me. His motive is to get rid of Nongqi and the other three girls. Perhaps?" "Oh right, teacher, I have a question to ask you." Chu Hen's expression was a little cautious. "Ask away." That Shura Sect's blade Zhu Langli. The moment she heard Langli's name, Shilan's pretty face instantly changed. A cold glint flashed in her eyes. Chapter 412. Shi Chen was killed by him. Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself. Hearing the words that Shilan spat out, Chu Hen's pupils could not help but faintly shrink. The corners of his eyes emitted an ice-cold chill. "It's him?" When they were at the 10,000 Beasts Ridge, Chu Hen had already noticed something was off with Shilan. However, he did not expect Lang Li to be the murderer of Shilan's brother. Now that he thought about it, he could not help but wonder how much hatred and pain Shilan had to bear at that time. Shilan did not lose her rationality even though she was faced with her enemy. However, Chu Hen knew Shilan was not afraid of Lang Li. She just did not want others to be implicated. After all, Lang Li's cultivation base was ranked second among the 7 absolutes. Coupled with the fact that the Azura Sect's group had more people than the Thousand Crane Sect, the Thousand Crane Sect would definitely be at a disadvantage if they fought. Furthermore, at that time, Chu Hen was also by his side. Shilan was unwilling to see Chu Hen being implicated. Due to these reasons, she forcefully suppressed the hatred in her heart. Shilan's eyes were filled with sorrow when she thought about Shi Chen's death. Her watery eyes were filled with a heart-wrenching grief. Chu Hen instinctively placed his hand on Shilan's shoulder and pulled her into his arms. He gave her a comforting hug. "Don't worry, teacher. If I have the chance, I'll definitely take Lang Li's head for you." Shilan's delicate body trembled slightly as she shook her head lightly. She did not say anything and only leaned quietly on Chu Hen's chest. After a while, Shilan's emotions gradually calmed down. Although she had turned her face away when she got up, Chu Hen could still see the faint traces of tears at the corner of her eyes. "You must be tired after traveling from the 10,000 Beasts Ridge for more than 10 days. You should be tired. Rest early today. If there's anything, you can look for me at Star Charm Peak." "All right." Chu Hen nodded and agreed softly. Then, Shilan left on her own. Looking at his opponent's back as he walked through the air, a determined expression appeared on Chu Hen's face. He clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Teacher, I will definitely avenge you." Night time. The sky was densely packed with stars, embellishing the vast universe. Chu Hen sat upright on the bed in the room, meditating like a boulder. "From today onwards, I can start cultivating the second level of the 7-star Saint Scripture, the Sun Genesis chapter," Chu Hen muttered to himself. As for the light-shaking technique of the first layer of the 7-star Scripture, he had already mastered it a long time ago, and he had also mastered the 3 techniques contained within it. It was roughly the same as the light-shaking technique. Previously, he had only drawn the power of the light-shaking star into his body, but once he started cultivating the Sun Genesis chapter, he would be able to draw the power of the Sun Genesis star into his dantian. He would be able to absorb twice the amount of 7 stars' energy compared to before, and his cultivation speed would also be twice as fast. The opening Sun chapter only contained a single technique. However, the lethality of this technique far surpassed the power of the Alcade chapters Alcade Star Flash and Alcade Slash. As for the Alioth chapter, Migres chapter, Fekta chapter, Merak chapter, and Dubhi chapter, they all only contained one technique. But without a doubt, the further one progressed, the stronger the techniques would be. Similarly, the further one progressed in the 7-star Saint Scripture, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. Immediately, Chu Hen adjusted his body's condition to its peak. Then, starting from the Alcade chapter's circulation route, he began to cultivate towards the Yang opening chapter. Wung Wung. Along with a wave of extremely obscure and powerful energy ripples, a silver beam of light that originated from the Alcade star descended from the sky in the vast and endless 9 firmaments. It pierced downwards and connected the heaven and earth like a holy radiance. It endlessly gathered the power of the stars into Chu Hen's body. As the powerful power of the 7 stars entered his body, a faint silver glow appeared around Chu Hen's body. The vigorous power flowed through his meridians and gathered towards the Yuan Dan in his dantian's dantian. Compared to the ordinary spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the power of the stars was many times stronger. Chu Hen's Yuan Dan rapidly absorbed this power, stabilizing and increasing the strength of his true origin energy. 10,000 Sky Peak. The bright moon hung high in the sky, under an ancient tree. A pot of wine and a black and white chess game. I say, sect leader, we've already played this game for 6 hours. I'm afraid that we won't be able to decide the winner even if the sun rises. Why don't we stop here and continue this game another day? The one who spoke was an old man dressed in white. The old man had a kind look, white hair, and a youthful face. He gave off the feeling that he was an otherworldly expert. In front of him sat a middle-aged man who looked like he was in his 40s. The man's eyebrows reached his temples, and he had an imposing appearance. His eyes were as bright as the stars, shining brightly. In front of the two of them was a chess game. The black and white chess pieces were evenly matched, like fire and water. However, neither of them had much of an advantage. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man smiled slightly. He picked up a black chess piece between his fingers and steadily placed it on the chessboard. There's no need to wait for another day. Ha ha. Clack. The chess piece landed, making a crisp sound. The kind-looking old man was stunned at first. Then, his eyes widened as he looked at the other party with a surprised expression. You? Ha ha! The middle-aged man's face was filled with pride. He raised his wine cup and filled the empty cups in front of the two of them. Great elder, can you still save the game this time? The old man smiled as he shook his head. Sect Master's skill in chess is growing more and more brilliant. Congratulations! After so many years, I've finally won against you once. The middle-aged man revealed a relaxed smile. After that, they raised their cups and drank together. Eh? The middle-aged man suddenly exclaimed with surprise. The old man was puzzled. What? The middle-aged man didn't answer him immediately. His eyes were filled with vigor as he gazed towards the direction of the thousand-craned sect. Whoosh. After that, a strand of strange energy fluctuations swept out from within him, and then a wisp of bright light actually flickered at the center of his forehead. After that, something shocking occurred. The mark of light at the center of his forehead slowly split open, and then a vertical dark golden eye appeared there. Heaven's eye! The middle-aged man shouted in his heart. Rumble! In the next moment, a strand of dazzling golden light erupted from the vertical heaven's eye. The light was like an enormous fan that swept out and instantly enveloped the heavens and the earth in front of him. The old man instantly frowned, and he revealed a shocked expression. Chapter 4:13. What's that? The Grand Elder of the Thousand Cranes sect had a surprised expression on his face as he gazed at the vast space ahead of him. A faint beam of silver starlight descended from the sky, and it shot into one of the mountains of the Thousand Cranes sect and connected the heavens and the earth. That's the energy of the 7 stars? The Grand Elder frowned slightly while his wise gaze revealed a trace of a fierce glow. Sect Master, have you found out who did it? The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly, and his tone carried slight bewilderment. It seems to have come from a remote mountain. A remote mountain? The Grand Elder seemed to take it seriously. Could it be that our sect has been recruiting new disciples recently because of one of them? Someone capable of drawing the energy of the stars into their bodies isn't an ordinary person at all. I'm just afraid that it might be a spy from another sect. The middle-aged man smiled and said, There's no need to be so sensitive, Grand Elder. The 100 Kingdoms Prefecture is vast and filled with geniuses. So, it isn't surprising for 1 or 2 people to be able to draw upon the energy of the stars to cultivate. Sect Master is enlightened. It was I who was narrow-minded. Haha, Grand Elder, you're thinking for the sake of the sect. How could you be narrow-minded? As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man intended to withdraw his eye of heaven. However, right at this moment, along with the powerful aura of energy, a second ray of dazzling silver light descended from the vast sky that was densely covered in stars. Starlight rained down through the sky like a silver river that had descended from the 9 heavens. Both rays of starlight converged at the same spot, and it was rather mysterious and unfathomable. The expressions of the Grand Elder and Sect Master changed once more, and they couldn't help but reveal slight surprise and bewilderment. After that, the middle-aged man raised his head, and the dark golden vertical eye at the center of his brows looked up into the sky. The gorgeous radiance emanating from the eye of heaven swept out like an enormous fan, and when looked at from afar, it formed an enormous golden funnel. So that's how it is. After a short period of scanning, the gorgeous golden radiance was swiftly restrained, and then the vertical eye between the middle-aged man's brows slowly closed. A wisp of light flashed before it vanished. At the same time, the two silver beams of light that connected heaven and earth disappeared from their sight again. The first beam came from the Alcade star, and the second beam came from the Mizar star. The middle-aged man said with certainty. The first elder raised his brows and said, "In that case, this person can borrow the power of the 7 stars to cultivate." "That's right. This can be considered a rather special ability. If it wasn't for the Sect Master's heavenly eye bloodline boundary, we wouldn't have been able to discover this." The great elder's tone carried a hint of admiration. The middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. With his hands behind his back, he walked to the top of the cliff and seemed to be deep in thought. "Sect leader? Why are you silent?" Great Elder asked in a deep voice. The middle-aged man shook his head and said meaningfully, "It's nothing. I just suddenly feel that the 100 Kingdoms province has not been peaceful recently." The night breeze blew gently and the night was picturesque. Xingyun Peak. In a unique and elegant room, a young lady with long purple hair was quietly leaning on the edge of the window-sill. Her delicate eyes were like water as she stared at the pavilion outside in a daze, the evening dress that was like sand wrapped around her exquisite and perfect figure. Under the hazy moonlight, Shilan's exquisite and beautiful face was as beautiful as a fairy. At this moment, the scene in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge appeared in Shilan's mind. At that critical moment, she almost couldn't help but want to push Chu Hen away. Then, the two of them woke up at the same time in the valley. They were so close to each other, and the temperature and calm aura on each other's body, as well as that moment of embarrassment and helplessness unknowingly, the corners of Shilan's rosy lips curled up slightly. She raised her pretty face slightly and leaned against the windowsill. Her beautiful eyes were lightly closed as she slowly sank into a relaxed state. The bright silver moonlight shone on Shilan's face, causing her fair skin to be even more beautiful like snow. Buzz! Buzz! At this moment, strands of colorful saint light suddenly spread out from Shilan's body. The colorful light was like a divine rainbow as it lingered around Shilan's body. A strange and powerful energy was released. However, Shilan seemed to not have heard it. Her breathing was still even and calm. However, at this moment, her beautiful face looked faintly beautiful and enchanting. A night flew by. When the sky turned white, Chu Hen, who had been cultivating the sun opening chapter for an entire night, slowly opened his eyes. His bright eyes emitted a dazzling light. The strength of 7 stars energy is really different. Chu Hen was pleasantly surprised. Compared to before, the speed of absorbing the 7 stars energy was more than twice as fast as before. Feeling the surging stars energy in his body, Chu Hen's whole body was full of energy and his spirit was refreshed. This was only the 2nd level of the sun opening chapter. If he cultivated to the 7th level, the Dubhi chapter, he would be able to absorb the 7 stars energy at the same time. How fast would the growth of his strength be? Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. It's a pity that the 7-star scripture can only be cultivated at night. If I can also cultivate during the day, I believe it won't be long before I can break through to the 2nd level of the void-piercing realm. Chu Hen muttered to himself. Immediately, Chu Hen calmed the restless breath in his body, then got up and walked out of the room. Creak! When the door opened, an abundant aura of heaven and earth rushed in. Compared to the time in Tensei Prefecture, it was like a completely different world. No wonder many people who studied martial arts wanted to enter the sect. It was a completely different concept from the martial academies. Qi Ting didn't come back all day? Chu Hen glanced at the empty courtyard. He hadn't seen Qi Ting since yesterday, when he said he was going to familiarize himself with the Thousand Crane Sect's environment. He must have encountered something that attracted him. After that, Chu Hen also immediately left the little forest peak. He randomly chose a direction and flew towards it. After all, the Thousand Crane Sect might become his temporary foothold in the future, so it was necessary to learn more about it. He had to admit that the Thousand Crane Sect was really vast. At first glance, he could see all kinds of magnificent buildings on the steep peaks. There were also grand and majestic ancient palaces, vast Dao platform plaza, iron chains, four-sided fighting arenas, and many other majestic buildings. Although it was only early in the morning, countless young disciples had gathered at the various venues for their morning exercises. Some were tempering their bodies, some were flying on swords, and many were sparring. He had never seen such a scene in the Sacred Star Dynasty. Chu Hen more or less felt a sense of surprise and novelty. A hint of surprise flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. The energy in this area seems to be a little active? With a bit of curiosity, Chu Hen's body moved and he flew in a direction. Shortly after, an imposing and majestic huge mountain stream appeared in Chu Hen's line of sight. In the center of the mountain stream stood a mountain range. This mountain range was slightly lower than the surrounding mountains, and it gave off a feeling of being surrounded in the center. On top of the mountain peak, there was a wide Dao platform. The platform was clearly layered, and its surface was paved with thick limestone slabs. At the center of the plaza stood a giant boulder. It was oval in shape, and its surface was as smooth as if it had been polished with sandpaper. It was about 30 meters wide and 50 meters tall, and from a distance it looked like a huge egg. Chu Hen flew down and steadily landed on the platform in a flash. The others around him looked at him in surprise, as if they were curious about Chu Hen's unfamiliar face. Chu Hen did not care about other people's gazes, and slowly approached the huge rock. He found that there were many people sitting around the huge rock, cultivating with their eyes closed. At the same time, Chu Hen could clearly feel that the closer he got to the huge rock, the more active the various energy elements between heaven and earth were, and the more concentrated the spiritual energy was. Newcomer? A clear and bright voice was transmitted to Chu Hen's ears. Looking to the side, what entered his eyes was a young face with small eyes. Looking at this person, Chu Hen could not help but think of Hausi, who had left with the thief rat. They both had small round eyes. Yes. Chu Hen nodded politely. I'm a temporary disciple, and I'm going to participate in the assessment in a few days. Oh! The man with small eyes was surprised. Not bad. Seems like you have some connections. Which elder of the sect are you related to? Actually, there was no such thing as a temporary disciple in the Thousand Crane Sect. Once one passed the assessment, one would become an official disciple, and if one didn't participate in the assessment, then one would naturally have no relationship with the Thousand Crane Sect. Under normal circumstances, those who weren't members of the Thousand Crane Sect were unable to stay in the sect. However, if one had some connections, then one could stay in the Thousand Crane Sect before participating in the assessment and wait for the new disciples to take the assessment. It was comparatively easier and more convenient. That was why the term temporary disciple existed. So, as far as the man with small eyes was concerned, Chu Hen was probably a relative of an elder, and that was why he could stay in the sect before becoming an official disciple of the Thousand Crane Sect. Chu Hen smiled and didn't provide any explanation. However, the man was rather friendly. I'm Xing Dian. You can call me Dian. What's your name? Dian? Chu Hen couldn't help but chuckle as he gazed at the man's small eyes. This name is really fitting, and he really should open his eyes wider. Brother Dian, do you need something? Xing Dian waved his hand, and then he pointed at the huge rock in front of him and said, "You seem rather interested in heavenly meteor." Heavenly meteor? A wisp of surprise arose in Chu Hen's eyes. Yes. Xing Dian was delighted in his heart when he saw Chu Hen's interest. He'd firmly believed that Chu Hen was a relative of an elder, and he felt that he had to get on good terms with such a person. Supposedly, this heavenly meteor is a meteor that fell from the sky a few hundred years ago. It was brought back by an elder of our sect, and he refined it into a treasure that assists in cultivation. Chu Hen asked, "What's special about it? I believe you've definitely noticed it. When you get close to this heavenly meteor, your senses towards the various elemental energies in the world would improve by a few times. To put it simply, it's like a cultivation accelerator." Xing Dian patted his hands together, and then he spoke in high spirits, "You can give it a try if you don't believe me. See if you can clearly sense the elemental energies that are usually difficult to sense now." Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't hesitate to circulate the 7-star scriptures cultivation technique. After a short moment of silence, Chu Hen's brows instantly raised, and he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Chapter 4:14. When he got close to the heavenly meteor, he could sense the power of the 7 stars. Chu Hen's heart lit up, and a hint of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. In this case, he could cultivate the 7-star scripture during the day and absorb the power of the stars to increase his cultivation speed. "How is it? Little brother, I didn't lie to you, did I?" "Yes, thank you for telling me." "You're welcome. We're brothers from now on, so if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask." "Little brother, don't be in such a hurry to cultivate. Let's have a chat first. Which elder's relative are you?" Without waiting for Xing Dian to finish speaking, Chu Hen already impatiently found a suitable empty seat and sat down. Then, he started to circulate the Alcade chapter and Yang opening chapter, entering a state of cultivation. Xing Dian pursed his lips in dissatisfaction when he sensed the true energy fluctuations coming from Chu Hen's body. Don't tell me he's a cultivation maniac? With the help of the heavenly meteor, the true energy in Chu Hen's body became very active, and the speed at which it circulated was 2 to 3 times faster than normal. Very quickly, the silver beam of light that originated from the Alcade star descended from the sky. Like a strand of silver spring that flew down from the 9th heaven, it directly entered Chu Hen's body. Afterwards, the second beam of star energy that originated from the Mizar star also appeared. It similarly transformed into surging energy that flowed into the Dantian's Qi Si and fused with the origin core. Chu Hen knew that no one else could see the 2 silver beams of light except for him. As a result, he could cultivate the 7-star scripture without any fear, and enjoy the energy fusing into his body even faster than last night. Chu Hen was pleasantly surprised. This heavenly meteor stone was truly a treasure, as expected. The sect's foundation and cultivation resources were not something a dynasty's martial academy could compare to. In the blink of an eye, the day passed, and night arrived. At night, many thousand Crane sect disciples who had come to cultivate gathered around the heavenly meteor. At night, the 2 beams of light in the sky above Chu Hen were especially dazzling, as if they were divine radiance condensed from starlight. However, even if it was so, not a single person nearby noticed Chu Hen's peculiarity. At most, they could see the faint silver light around Chu Hen's body, but they could not detect anything else. The spacious heavenly meteor square was quiet. Occasionally, there were light footsteps and people talking in low voices. The 1,000 Crane sect's disciples would not make a ruckus here. Birds chirped in the mountains, and the mountains were quiet. The mountains were quiet, and the mountains of the mountains, and the mountains of the meteor. Following the increasingly strong power of the 7 stars merging into his dantian, the aura emitted by the Yuan Dan in Chu Hen's body became increasingly joyful and restless. On top of the Yuan Dan that had a gentle light lingering around it, A long and narrow crack was like one of the strokes of an ancient rune, vigorous and sharp, a crack. It of the void. If there were 9 cracks, it meant that it was at the 9th rank. It was obvious that Chu Hen was quite far away from the latter levels. OM. Suddenly, Chu Hen issued a command in his heart, and his consciousness immediately entered the depths of his dantian. It didn't take long for Chu Hen's consciousness to arrive at a strange space. The 9 heavens, the chaotic Milky Way. In the vast and boundless chaos world, an incomparably huge black shadow guarded this part of the world like a fiend god. A shuddering aura filled the sky in all directions. In the area in front of the huge black shadow, there was a pair of purple demonic eyes. The demonic eyes were like the eyes of a peerless demonic god, looking down at the common people and staring at the land below. However, on one side was an enormous figure, and on the other was a pair of evil eyes. A ferocious and violent sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow was actually being suppressed at the center of these 2 strange forces. Screech! A resounding cry that seeped into one's soul carried a strand of strange magic. This kind of power made one's heart palpitate and fear. A strange veil of light condensed around the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow. The veil of light was a huge transparent cube, sealing off all 6 directions of the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow. 2 different colors of light floated on the surface of the huge transparent cube. One was a dense black light, and the other was a demonic purple light. Chaotic body, sacred demonic pupil body. Chu Hen couldn't help but secretly rejoice that he possessed these 2 powerful bloodlines. If it was any other ordinary bloodline, not to mention being unable to suppress the power of the sacred-winged heavenly flame bird, he wouldn't even be able to keep his life. Of course, Chu Hen could also see that the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow's power was worlds apart from before. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easily trapped in his body. Screech! Perhaps sensing that Chu Hen was spying on it, the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow was particularly angry. Dense golden flames bloomed all over his body, like rising flames. The pair of gorgeous colorful wings set off heavy waves of heat, constantly attacking in all directions. Bang, bang, wave after wave of majestic power collided with the huge transparent cube, causing waves of violent tremors. Chu Hen suddenly felt as if the inside of his body was overturned, and his blood was restless. Humph! Chu Hen snorted coldly and said in a deep voice, "I advise you to behave. You're in my territory now. I don't care if you're an ancient demon or an emperor of all beasts. It's your bad luck to run into me." These words were rather domineering, but in reality, Chu Hen didn't have much confidence. He had personally witnessed the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow's ferocity and terror. If it were to self-destruct like it did in the 10,000 Beast Ridge, just the thought of it sent chills down his spine. Screech, the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow, completely ignored Chu Hen's warning. The disturbance it caused became greater and greater. Various violent powers constantly collided against the suppression of the chaotic body and the sacred demonic eye body. Its cold eyes shone with a cold light that was as frightening as a sword. God damn it! Chu Hen groaned inside. It really wasn't a good thing to keep something like that in his body. The tremendous energy surged like an undercurrent in the deep sea. His Dantian sea of qi was thrown into chaos, as if it could explode at any time. He couldn't keep it in his body. It was like a temporarily dormant volcano. No one knew when it would erupt. However, Chu Hen also had no way of sending it away. With his current strength, he could only suppress it with the power of his 2 bloodlines. He could not expel it. "I'll get teacher to ask the elders of the 1,000 Crane sect for help." Chu Hen's eyes lit up, but he dismissed the idea very quickly. Once an elder of the 1,000 Crane sect assisted him, his secret of possessing the chaotic body and the sacred body of the demon eye would most likely be exposed. Whether it would be a blessing or a curse at that time was not something that could be easily determined. As a result, Chu Hen was truly troubled. He couldn't chase it away, nor could he ask for help. Did he really have to let it hide in his body? Chu Hen secretly panicked as he watched the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow become more and more violent, as if it was about to break through its limits. Fuck, I'm going all out. Do you think I'll let you be cocky in my territory? Boom. In the next moment, the brutal power of the chaotic body surged out from Chu Hen's body like a flood. The incomparably domineering black shadow set off a torrential might as it stretched out its arms towards the saint-winged heavenly flame sparrow. Astonishing power surged out like a mountain, suppressing it. Screech, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's presence had clearly been suppressed, but it was still extremely violent. Its cold eyes were filled with some fear and confusion. It had never thought that the puny Chu Hen would actually possess such a shocking and mysterious power. The black figure extended its arms towards the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. The hands shrouded in dense black light seemed like the hands of a demonic god. Swish, swish, swish. Shortly after, innumerable black beams of light flew out from the blazing black light. They tore through the air and penetrated through the massive transparent cube, shooting towards the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow at the center. Screech, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow produced a furious cry when it saw the strange streaks of black light. The golden flames around it became extraordinarily bright. At the same time, the purple demonic eye in the rear burst forth with a dazzling splendor that was comparable to the sun. The majestic purple light swept out and forced the violent aura of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird back. Swish, swish. Hundreds and thousands of streaks of black light wrapped around the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's neck, body, and wings, along with the rumbling of wind and thunder. Endless black light gathered in front of the chest of the huge black figure. The surging black light slowly rotated, turning into a bizarre light vortex. Soon after, a demonic god's hand reached out from the vortex and shot towards the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. Screech, perhaps it knew what Chu Hen was about to do. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow issued a sharp warning cry. Its eyes were filled with killing intent as it flapped its huge rainbow wings, raising waves of heat. Humph, I don't believe that I can't do anything to you. Chu Hen inwardly sneered. Buzz, the demonic god's hand passed through the transparent light curtain and stuck to the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's huge head. In an instant, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's majestic demonic energy swiftly gathered at the center of the giant hand. The multicolored holy light was as dazzling as a divine rainbow, rapidly converging at the center of his palm, forming a colorful light ball. Sensing its demonic energy being forcefully extracted, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was both shocked and furious. It was extremely furious. Chu Hen's intentions were extremely simple. Since he couldn't send the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow away or kill it, he would weaken it and slowly exhaust it to death. Very soon, Chu Hen felt that the demonic energy he had extracted had reached its highest point. If it went any lower, he would lose control of it. Buzz, afterward, the black light around the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow dispersed and the huge hand withdrew the rainbow ball of light. The astonishing demonic energy was like the essence of the rainbow, dazzling. However, in the next second, when the rainbow ball of light fused with the black figure of the chaotic body, an extremely powerful energy surged within Chu Hen's body. Crap, the chaotic body has absorbed the demonic energy. Chu Hen was both shocked and afraid. He was shocked because this wasn't the first time it had done this. In the past, the chaotic body had also absorbed other types of energy. He was afraid because this was the demonic energy of the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. If he couldn't endure it, he would be done for. However, Chu Hen's reaction was clearly too late. An incomparably enormous amount of demonic energy flowed through every major meridian in his body, filling every inch of his flesh and pores. Then, the powerful demonic energy quickly gathered in his dantian's qi, and like 100 rivers flowing into the ocean, It rushed into his Yuan Dan. Buzz. Buzz. The Yuan Dan violently shook as it absorbed the energy and released a dazzling light. Chapter 4:15. Buzz. An enormous amount of demonic power flowed through Chu Hen's meridians, filling every inch of his flesh and pores. Under the assault of such an astonishing amount of energy, the powerful demonic power quickly flowed into Chu Hen's Yuan Dan. Ka-cha! With a crisp sound, the Yuan Dan, which originally only had one crack, suddenly split open into another fine line. The crack continued to extend, resembling a vigorous stroke from an ancient rune secret tome. Immediately after, an enormous amount of Yuan Qi that was several times stronger than before instantly erupted from Chu Hen's Yuan Dan like a flood that had broken through a dam, surging throughout his body. Second rank of the void-piercing realm. Feeling the unceasingly growing true Yuan in his body, Chu Hen's heart was instantly overjoyed. The chaotic body could actually withstand the terrifying demonic power of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird and absorb it into his body. This was truly a pleasant surprise. Shortly after, Chu Hen's consciousness once again returned to the place where the sacred winged heavenly flame bird was suppressed. The aura of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird was clearly weaker than before, and the brilliant holy splendor around its body was especially dim. It lay inside the huge transparent cube, its ice-cold eyes surging with extremely cold killing intent and anger. The other party was angry. Chu Hen was overjoyed. He had never thought that the chaotic body could even absorb the power of this ancient demonic power. For Chu Hen, this was simply a disaster that had suddenly become a treasure. Just extracting a small portion of the other party's demonic power had allowed him to break through to the second rank of the void-piercing realm. How could this not make Chu Hen happy? If he did it a few more times, not only would he be able to effectively weaken the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's power, but he could also boost his own cultivation. Just thinking about it was enough to make him excited. If the sacred winged heavenly flame bird knew what Chu Hen was thinking, it was afraid that it would be so angry that it would self-destruct again. Speaking of which, it was really unlucky. Of all the people it could have met, it just had to meet a freak like Chu Hen, who possessed an extraordinarily powerful bloodline. A normal human wouldn't be able to endure the terrifying demonic energy of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird, but Chu Hen had forcibly assimilated it. Most people wouldn't believe such a thing if they heard it. However, this was not the first time Chu Hen had done this. Previously, when he was in the Saint Star dynasty, he had even absorbed the energy from the Beast King, the Frost Moon Devil Wolf's spirit origin liquid and the blood essence of the bloodthirsty Razorback Dragon. Later on, during the preliminary round of the Six Nations Heaven ranking battle, he had used the street tree to devour tens of thousands of souls in the desert valley. This was basically due to the special boundary of the bloodline. However, the sacred wing heavenly flame sparrow was still a terrifying great demon. After Chu Hen's origin core fused with its demonic energy, it still reacted strangely. Due to the demonic beast's power being excessively overbearing and berserk, Chu Hen's true Yuan was unable to completely fuse with it in a short period of time. This caused the major meridians in his body to have a faint feeling of being torn apart. Chu Hen did not dare to be careless. He knew very well how terrifying the sacred wing heavenly flame sparrow was. Under such circumstances, if he was the slightest bit careless, it was very likely that extreme joy would turn into sorrow. Immediately, Chu Hen began to circulate the true origin core in his body to guide and calm the demonic energy in his body so that he could better fuse with it. Heavenly Meteor Plaza. The 1,000 Crane Sect's disciples that gathered here changed batch after batch. On the other hand, Chu Hen was still sitting in his original position like a boulder. He did not move in the slightest. The silvery starlight faintly covered Chu Hen's body. At the same time, other than the power of the stars, there were also strands of golden flames lingering around Chu Hen's body. This strange golden flame caused the temperature around Chu Hen to be quite scorching. If one were to look carefully, they would discover that even the space was slightly distorted. Sitting here for a few days in a row, it was inevitable that Chu Hen would attract attention. Look at that person. He's been sitting here for 4 whole days. That face is quite unfamiliar. Is he new? He should be a temporary disciple. It's good to have connections. He can enjoy some of the sect's basic cultivation resources even before he officially joins the sect. So what? If he can't pass the test, he'll still have to scram. At this moment, Chu Hen's aura suddenly began to converge. He slowly opened his eyes, parted his lips slightly, and lightly spat out a mouthful of gray turbid air. I've finally calmed down that overbearing demonic power. A relaxed smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Although the process was slightly troublesome, it was still manageable. Feeling the abundant true essence in his dantian, he was pleasantly surprised to have broken through to the second stage of the void-piercing realm in such a short time. His biggest gain was naturally finding a way to deal with the sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow. It turned out that this so-called ancient demon wasn't that difficult to deal with. Chu Hen was secretly delighted. Hey brother, you're still here? You're really diligent. Don't tell me you've been sitting here for 4 days? A loud voice came from above. Following that, a young figure flashed to Chu Hen's side. It was the pair of small eyes Xingdian. Chu Hen was in a very good mood. He smiled faintly. Yes, I was just about to leave. Hee, where are you going? After cultivating for so many days, it must be boring. Come, I'll take you to watch a show. Watch a show? Watch what show? Of course it's a good show. Xingdian's small eyes were shining, and he was beaming with joy. He was almost spitting out his saliva. I just heard that there's a temporary disciple who's extremely daring. He actually dared to provoke the hall disciple Gu Guanyu. Now he's on the life and death arena. This is simply an unprecedented show. Tell me, isn't this the same as being kicked in the head by a donkey? He hasn't even truly stepped into the Thousand Crane sect, yet he went to provoke a hall disciple. This is the first time I've seen such a deranged person. Xingdian's voice was very loud. The surrounding people were awakened by his voice. If it was a normal day, Xingdian would definitely be scolded. However, when they heard that the temporary disciple had just provoked a hall disciple and had even ascended to the life and death arena, they couldn't remain calm. How many people didn't like to watch a show? Moreover, it was an unprecedented show. A busybody asked. Xingdian, which clan's elder's relative is that temporary disciple? I don't know whose relative he is. I only know he's called Qi something Ting. In any case, he's just arrogant. Qi Ting? It can't be, right? Chu Hen, who didn't intend to join in the fun, couldn't help but be stunned. That fellow has ascended the arena with a hall disciple? Let's go. If we still don't go, then we won't be able to watch a good show. Xingdian seemed as if he wished for the world to be in chaos, and he casually grabbed Chu Hen's arm as he said, Let's go. Brother, I'll take you to watch the show. Swoosh. Right when Xingdian was about to touch Chu Hen's arm, a silver flowing light flashed, and then Chu Hen suddenly vanished on the spot. Xingdian's hand grabbed empty air, and he glanced at the surroundings with a surprised expression. Where's he? One-line sky, the arena. 2 enormous peaks with vast imposing auras emitted might that could hold up the heavens, and a vast square was established in the middle of these 2 peaks. On the vast square were numerous arenas. These arenas were circular in shape and had a diameter of almost 100 meters. 2 large words were inscribed on the surface of every arena, life and death. As the saying goes, once one entered the life and death arena, the sect wouldn't look into the matter of death or injury. After all, personal enmity existed everywhere, and when enmity accumulated deeper and deeper, it could only be resolved with a battle. So, this life and death arena wasn't a place for casual sparring, and it was instead a place for settling personal enmity. In the distant mountain stream, There was a waterfall that flowed for a long time. The flat waterfall was shaped like the Milky Way that descended from the 9 heavens, and it had a magnificent, imposing manner. However, an extremely intense battle was currently erupting on the life and death arena at the center. Below the arena, a large crowd was drawn over from all directions. F***K. He really is a temporary disciple. I thought it was fake. I also thought it was a joke. Good Lord, he's really amazing, and he hasn't even officially stepped into the sect yet. If he's so arrogant, what will happen in the future? Looks like there's a need to dampen the arrogance of these new disciples and reduce their drive. Don't worry, leave it to Senior Brother Gu. In the life and death arena, the target of everyone's dispute was Cheating. Cheating continued to launch fierce attacks. His opponent was a young man in his early 20s. He was tall and sturdy, and his aura was much stronger than Cheating. Cheating, we haven't seen each other for a few years, and you're still so useless. If I didn't leave the Imperial City back then, you wouldn't have been able to stand out in the Boulder Dynasty for the past few years. By right, shouldn't you be thanking me? His frivolous tone was filled with a strong sense of playfulness. Cheating's eyes were wide open as he shouted angrily, "I'll thank your ancestors." Rock burst fist. Buzz, Cheating threw a punch and a huge power swept out. The air was filled with the sound of rolling rocks. His opponent's fist turned into rocks at an extremely fast speed, forming a layer of solid stone armor. Swoosh. Gu Guanyu moved and easily dodged the attack. Too slow. With your level, you really shouldn't be here to embarrass yourself. Wow, you're too cocky. Come on, Big Chi, I have faith in you. On the other side of the arena, Hua Shui shouted loudly. Beside her were Fu Qin, Nongqi, Jishu, Lu Qi, and Li Nanhai. Among the crowd, except for Li Nanhai, who was a little anxious, the rest were not too worried, especially Hua Shui. She was not afraid of the situation getting out of hand, so she joined in the fun. Swoosh. Suddenly, a slight sound of wind breaking came from the area behind the crowd. Nongqi raised her eyebrows and opened her red lips. Shu Hen is here. Where? Hua Shui asked with her eyes wide open. Chu Hen, over here, over here. I haven't seen you for a few days. If Senior Sister Nongqi didn't tell me that your aura was nearby, I would have thought that you ran away again. Under Hua Shui's guidance, Chu Hen walked in front of them. While playing the zither, astonishment flashed in the eyes of Ji Shu and the others. Compared to a few days ago, the aura that Chu Hen gave off had clearly changed a little. It seemed that in the few days that he had disappeared, his strength had increased again. Chapter 4:16. What's going on? Chu Hen arrived at the life and death arena and walked to Fu Qin, Li Nanhai, and the others. I know. Hua Shui immediately said, they used to be rivals in love. Later, the person that big guy Qi likes ran away with someone else, so he came to seek revenge. Rival in love? Chu Hen froze. Coming to the life and death arena for love? Lu Qi rolled her eyes at Hua Shui. Don't talk nonsense. It's not like that at all. Isn't it? Aren't they rivals in love? Hua Shui asked with her eyes wide open. Chu Hen, Li Nanhai, and the others were speechless. Lu Qi was indeed making things up. Gu Guanyu stayed in the Boulder Dynasty for a period of time as well. Moreover, Cheating had always been suppressed and humiliated by Gu Guanyu while he was still in the Boulder Dynasty. I never expected that they would encounter each other again in the Thousand Cranes sect. Lu Qi's red lips moved slightly, and she explained the situation to everyone. I see. It's not a big deal. Why did they have to go to the life and death arena? Hua Shui pouted. Lu Qi shook her head and answered helplessly, You guys don't know this, but Cheating didn't provoke Gu Guanyu these days. Instead, Gu Guanyu kept mocking him and even brought up the things that happened in the Boulder Dynasty. Cheating couldn't take it anymore and fought with him. After hearing Lu Qi's simple explanation, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked a little indifferent. From his recent short contact with Qi Ting, Chu Hen had some understanding of him. Qi Ting wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble, but he fought with a hall-level disciple before he officially joined the sect. Qi Ting must be really angry this time, and he would only be so impulsive when he couldn't take it anymore. Don't worry, I've already sent someone to inform senior sister Shilan, Li Nanhai said while turning to the side. Chu Hen nodded and didn't say anything else. However, it seemed that Fu Qin, Hua Shui, and the others weren't anxious about it. Boom! On the arena, energy intersected and collided wantonly, and it gave rise to a wave of powerful and surging waves of air. It could be seen that Qi Ting was truly enraged. His attacks were fierce and ferocious like a wolf. He possessed a cultivation at the first stage of the void-piercing realm, and coupled with the bloodline boundary of the Gold's and profound body, his combat strength caused all the spectating disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect to be shocked in their hearts. However, Gu Guanyu's strength has reached the second order of the void-breaking realm, and his momentum has steadily suppressed Qi Ting. How boring. I haven't seen you for a few years, and you're still at this level. At least I thought you'd give me a surprise, Gu Guanyu taunted as he fought back, and he seemed to be under no pressure at all. After all, he was a Sanctuary Division disciple. His strength naturally went without saying. Humph, it's too early for you to be happy. The show has just begun. Qi Ting roared furiously, and then a powerful aura surged into the sky. Golden sand danced in the air, covered the heavens and the earth, and instantly enveloped more than half of the arena. Along with the mighty aura that was surging like a tide, the endless golden sand fell like rain and attacked Gu Guanyu from all directions. Sandstorm. The fine grains of sand were extremely swift, and every single one of them was like a sharp needle that was extremely penetrative and lethal. Gu Guanyu sneered. A gray light shone from his body, and a powerful aura spread out in all directions. Then, Gu Guanyu lifted his leg and stomped heavily on the ground. Boom! A gray light curtain rose in front of his body. If one looked carefully, one would notice that the gray screen of light was actually a layer of sticky mud, and it seemed as if it had been moved from a swamp. Bang! 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 The dense golden sand continuously smashed against the mud, and it sank deep into it and was firmly absorbed. Hee, your golden sand isn't very effective against my mud. Yellow Spring Swamp. Before he finished speaking, Gu Guanyu immediately stood up in anger. He clapped his hands together and immediately slammed them on the ground. Rumble. In an instant, a patch of gray mud soared into the sky like a raging tsunami. It instantly rose by dozens of meters, and with an unstoppable might, it flew towards Qi Ting. A large area of shadow shrouded the entire arena. The dark gray mud was like a roaring devil, and it had an imposing manner that could destroy everything. Everyone on the stage revealed a look of shock and secretly nodded in agreement. Senior Brother Gu is really powerful. That blind guy should regret stepping onto the life and death arena. Have you ever seen a temporary disciple provoke a Sanctuary Division disciple? Is he courting death? Facing the raging torrent of mud, Qi Ting's face did not show the slightest hint of panic. He spread his arms, and the golden sand that lingered around him spun and danced at an extremely fast speed. The airflow between heaven and earth rotated rapidly, and the fine sand spread out and hung on Qi Ting's face. Then, Qi Ting's body spun rapidly like a top, causing the airflow to flow in all directions. In the next moment, Qi Ting directly transformed into a golden tornado that was more than 10 meters tall. The golden sand lingered around his body, and it was really impregnable. Sand tornado! Qi Ting shouted in a stern voice, and he rose up in a rage. The golden tornado whistled out in a graceful manner, and directly collided with the pouncing gray mud. Boom! Qi Ting's true essence flew, and light splashed in all directions. The golden tornado that Qi Ting had transformed into was like a dancing dragon, and it unexpectedly smashed the torrent of mud that was comparable to a raging tsunami into pieces. Then, Qi Ting's long body descended like a hot knife through butter, and he set off a fierce gust of wind as he charged towards Gu Guanyu in front of him. Humph! Gu Guanyu lightly snorted, and his figure moved. He stepped on the air, and turned into a flowing shadow that swept towards the sky. Bang! The terrifying impact solidly bombarded the stage, and immediately dust flew everywhere. Stone chips flew everywhere, and the ground constantly cracked open. A huge pit that was more than 10 meters wide appeared on the martial arts arena. The quality of this martial arts arena is not bad. Hua Shui, who was below the stage, suddenly jumped out such a sentence. Everyone else was paying attention to the situation, but she actually cared about the quality of the martial arts arena. Chu Hen and the others were angry and amused at the same time. However, the quality of the martial arts arena was indeed not bad. Qi Ting's attack just now was enough to destroy the entire stage if it was an ordinary martial arts arena. However, at this moment, there was only a pit on the stage. Everything in this sect was built according to a specific standard. Big Qi is quite powerful. I thought he would not last long and lose. Hua Shui continued to speak as if there was no one else around. Yes. Ji Shu nodded, and her red lips opened slightly. The boundary of his bloodline is stronger than that Gu Guanyu. Aren't they both Xian bodies? Xian bodies are also divided into different grades. In terms of the strength of the bloodline boundary, Qi Ting is even stronger. Ji Shu explained. Next to her, Chu Hen and Li Nanhai also lightly nodded in agreement. Regarding the boundary of the bloodline, each level would have different divisions. Whether it was the martial body, the battle body, the Xian body, or the sacred body, they would not all be the same. For example, Qi Ting's Golden Sand Xian body, Lu Qi's Water Soul Xian body, and the Wind Ghost clan's Uncreepy Knight's Wind Ghost Xian body. They were all considered to be above average Xian body bloodline boundary. In comparison, the Dragon Spirit Xian body of the leader of the Sacred Star Dynasty's team, Huang Fuliang, belonged to a higher-level bloodline boundary. There was no shortage of talented abnormal geniuses in this world, who possessed the top-grade Xian body bloodline boundary. The power that this level of Xian body could burst out was close to some of the more ordinary sacred bodies. Even though Qi Ting's bloodline boundary was slightly stronger than Gu Guanyu's, his cultivation was still inferior. Coupled with the fact that Gu Guanyu had been in the Thousand Crane sect for a few years now, he'd improved greatly in all aspects. So, no matter how ferocious Qi Ting's attacks were, he was still unable to gain the slightest advantage in the battle. However, the Thousand Crane sect's disciples below the arena couldn't maintain their composure anymore. It was very simple. Gu Guanyu was a hall disciple, while Qi Ting was a temporary disciple. The gap between their levels was too huge, so it wasn't right for a hall disciple like Gu Guanyu to be unable to defeat Qi Ting after such a long time. Gu Guanyu, can you do it or not? You can't even deal with a temporary disciple. Looks like you'll probably be eliminated from the ranks of hall disciples this year. Haha. Your position as a hall disciple is at risk. Many of the busybodies roared with laughter. Gu Guanyu's gaze sank, and a layer of ice couldn't help but surge onto his face. He really was ranked at the very back amongst the hall disciples, so there was a risk of him being eliminated from the ranks. However, he instantly felt extremely displeased when he was exposed. I'll end the battle now. Gu Guanyu's eyes surged with a cold light, and the surging aura of a second-stage void-piercing state erupted like a torrent. The dense gray light that lingered around his body immediately transformed into a huge fist that smashed towards Qi Ting. Rumble! In the process of moving, the gray mud quickly solidified into a stone. A majestic aura swept across the sky like a mountain, causing the airflow to whistle in all directions. Heavenly Rock Fist. Qi Ting's face surged with a resolute light as he sensed the powerful aura coming towards him. He didn't show any fear. The golden sand that whistled through the sky was like a surging wave, and the golden sand converged into a river that enveloped the sky above the arena. The golden light was resplendent and gorgeous. Golden Waves. Chapter 4:17. Heavenly Rock Tyrant Fists. Surging golden wave. Boom! In an instant, under the astonished gazes of everyone present, the huge golden waterfall-like shockwave swept all the way down, stirring up a majestic and shocking aura that firmly bombarded the mountain-like giant rock fist. Rumble! Bang! An incomparably violent energy immediately exploded above everyone's heads. The sky turned dark while tornadoes arose. The scene was like a torrent that had broken through a dam, and it was colliding with a mountain. Dazzling light shot into the sky while golden sand danced in the air, blotted out the sky, and enveloped the sky above the arena. The remaining power of the powerful attack spread in all directions, but the aura that Qi Ting released had firmly restricted Gu Guanyu's attack. Many disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect were surprised in their hearts. Qi Ting possesses extraordinary strength. I believe that he'll be able to shine brilliantly during the new disciple test this year. Rumble! It didn't take long for the surging golden sand wave to engulf the rock fist like a landslide, and Gu Guanyu's attack was instantly restrained. The eyes of Li Nanhai, Lu Qi, Hua Shui, and the others lit up, and they revealed pleasant surprise. Not bad. Big Brother Qi had such a move? Hua Shui exclaimed with surprise. Li Nanhai nodded with praise as well. I was worried for nothing, Junior Brother Qi Ting. I believe that the sect will soon notice Junior Brother Qi Ting after this battle and attach great importance to him. The Thousand Cranes sect recruited a batch of new disciples every year. There was no lack of outstanding talent and strength amongst them. However, there were only a few like Qi Ting who could compare to a hall disciple as soon as he arrived. The Thousand Cranes sect naturally wouldn't ignore such a genius with such potential. After the golden sand wave drowned the rock fist, it didn't slow down at all as it surged towards Gu Guanyu. Qi Ting seized the opportunity to soar into the air, and his body was enveloped by bright golden light as he flashed forward. Gu, I'll let you know that I can't possibly fall behind you forever. Buzz under Qi Ting's control. The power of the golden sand that was rushing towards Gu Guanyu increased exponentially. It was as if thousands of beasts were running and thousands of soldiers were slaughtering each other. Wherever it went, space distorted and trembled. Hee. However, not only was there no fear on Gu Guanyu's face, he even sneered in disdain. You're too naive. Do you really think that your golden sand is that powerful? What did you say? Hee. Gu Guanyu's eyes turned cold, and a strange energy fluctuation was suddenly released from his body. He raised his hands, crossed his fingers, and instantly completed a series of hand seals. Almost at the same time, the golden sand that Qi Ting released suddenly stirred up an extreme energy riot. The restless energy turbulence was like a rapidly expanding volcano. When Gu Guanyu completed the last seal, his throat moved slightly, and he spat out a word clearly. Explode. Explode. Everyone's heart was startled. Boom! With a deafening bang, an endless destructive power immediately exploded from the inside of the golden sand wave. A monstrous gray light soared into the sky, like a huge mushroom cloud. The majestic remaining power shook the heavens and the earth, sweeping in all directions. The golden sand that covered the sky was swept away, like a huge flower that had bloomed. It was really earth-shattering. Is that the rock just now? Someone in the crowd exclaimed. I see. Gu Guanyu has been waiting for this moment. A palace disciple is a palace disciple after all. He's really good at deceiving everyone. The crowd did not expect Gu Guanyu to still be able to make a fuss about that rock. The rock fist that he had blasted out was deliberately engulfed by Qi Ting's golden sand, and when Qi Ting was careless, he would detonate the explosive rock, setting off an unusually ferocious shock wave. The endless gray splendor mixed with the golden sand rain swept up waves of power that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Qi-Ting, who was caught off guard, hurriedly retreated, using the golden sand to form a defensive layer in front of him. However, at this moment, Gu Guanyu directly flew out and instantly arrived above Qi-Ting. A wisp of dense gray light quickly gathered on the index and middle fingers of his right hand like a flowing shadow. "He, you're still as crippled as before. There's no point in keeping you alive. It's better for you to die." "You!" Qi-Ting's pupils tightly shrank, panic surging out from between his thick brows. Immediately after, Gu Guanyu waved his finger, and the gray light wrapped around his fingertip directly attacked Qi-Ting below. Yellow Spring's finger soared. Buzz buzz. The rapid wind-breaking momentum was abnormally strong. The gray light beam was like a sword shadow flying from the sky. It swept up a thick killing intent and slashed towards Qi-Ting. As it moved, the light beam became incomparably solid. In an instant, it turned into a huge gray stone sword, a majestic mountain-like pressure pressed down, causing Qi-Ting's clothes to flutter and his long hair to dance chaotically. Even their blood was restless from the pressure. Bang! The huge stone sword solidly struck in front of Qi-Ting, and a powerful halo of air blossomed in the sky. Along with the heavy trembling of the cyclone, Qi-Ting's body shook violently, as if he had been hit by a mountain. He fell straight down from the sky, scarlet blood continuously spurting out from his mouth. Qi-Ting's aura was rapidly suppressed. Bang! Subsequently, he heavily smashed below the arena, sending up a series of rubble like a swarm of moths. Qi-Ting collapsed in a pile of rubble, looking battered and exhausted. No one present was surprised by such an outcome. Although Gu Guanyu could be said to be at the bottom of the hall disciples, he was not someone a temporary disciple could compare to. He's actually not dead? A strange and ruminating smile appeared on Gu Guanyu's face. Following that, another wisp of gray light quickly gathered between his fingers and formed circles of light patterns that flowed up and down. Astonishing restless energy continuously surged out, and undisguised killing intent was released from his body. Not good. Big Brother Qi is going to die. Hua Xue exclaimed. The expressions of Lu Qi, Li Nanhai, and the others changed drastically as well. Li Nanhai hurriedly shouted, "Senior Brother Gu, please show mercy." However, Gu Guanyu acted as if he didn't hear Li Nanhai's advice. He stared coldly at Qi-Ting with a mocking gaze, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Your biggest mistake was coming to the Thousand Crane sect. I won't send you off, swish." At the same time as the voice faded, the second gray stone sword once again soared into the sky. Its momentum was like a graceful swan as it rolled up an endless murderous aura towards Qi-Ting, who was lying on the ground. The second sword far surpassed the first sword in both speed and aura. Waves of air trembled in the air. The huge stone sword was surrounded by strange gray light patterns, and its powerful aura caused Qi-Ting to be unable to move. All he could do was watch death descend upon him. Qi-Ting's pupils constricted to the size of needles. His eyes were filled with rage and unwillingness. Most of the people in the surroundings watched on indifferently, but some felt that it was a pity. However, when the sword of death was less than 3 meters away from Qi-Ting, a loud bang resounded. In an instant, countless cracks appeared on the sword's body. Along with the violent wind and scattered true origin aura, the huge stone sword that could heavily injure Wu Xiu, who was at the second stage of the void-piercing realm, exploded into countless rubble. Everyone was startled by this. Chapter 4:18. Bang! The wild wind wantonly splashed, and under the scattered waves of Jinchi, the rock sword exploded into gray gravel that filled the sky. A young figure suddenly appeared in front of Qi-Ting. Who's that? Another temporary disciple? The other disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect revealed astounded expressions. Moreover, they were even more surprised by the fact that Qi-Ting hadn't just blocked Gu Guanyu's lethal attack. He was completely unharmed as well. Only his clothes fluttered in the wind, and he stood there as steady as a mountain despite the powerful impact of the attack. Qi heaved a heartfelt sigh of relief as he lay amongst the rocks, and his pale face revealed slight gratitude. After that, Lu Qi, Hua Shui, and Li Nanhai ran over to check on Qi. "Big Guy Qi, are you dead?" Hua Shui asked in a carefree manner. Lu Qi shook his head with slight helplessness, and then he casually withdrew a healing pill and stuffed it into Qi mouth before helping Qi up from the ground. Gu Guanyu flashed down from above, and his icy cold gaze was filled with coldness as he stared at Chu Hen. He said, "Where did you come from? How dare you meddle in my business?" Chu Hen smiled politely and cupped his fists slightly. "Senior brother Gu, Qi offended you earlier, and you taught him a lesson. There's no need to take his life and be so ruthless, right?" "Humph." Gu Guanyu laughed coldly and spoke with slight disdain. "Don't you know that even the sect master wouldn't interfere in a battle on the life and death arena? You're just a temporary disciple, yet you dare to break the rules of the sect?" The surroundings couldn't help but discuss animatedly and whisper amongst themselves as they discussed the origins of Chu Hen's group. Those who were able to stay in the Thousand Crane sect before the exam basically had some connections, and it was especially so for new disciples who dared to provoke a Hall disciple as soon as they arrived. Meanwhile, Li Nanhai stepped forward and persuaded, "Senior brother Gu, it's their first time here, and they aren't familiar with the rules of the sect. Please be merciful and don't pursue the matter." "Oh? You brought them here?" Gu Guanyu glanced at Li Nanhai. "Yes." Gu Guanyu nodded and continued, "But, very good." Without waiting for Li Nanhai to finish speaking, Gu Guanyu coldly cut him off and changed the topic. He looked at Chu Hen and his voice suddenly turned sharp. "Humph, you've disrupted my battle. Shouldn't you take responsibility for this matter?" "Senior Martial Brother Gu." Li Nanhai opened his mouth. "Shut up, this has nothing to do with you." As a Hall disciple, Gu Guanyu did not take Li Nanhai seriously at all. He had already been humiliated by Qi provocation today, and now Chu Hen had appeared out of nowhere. No matter what, Gu Guanyu would not let this matter go. In the face of Gu Guanyu's overbearing attitude, Chu Hen was still calm and collected, neither servile nor overbearing. "Senior brother Gu, please don't be angry. I really didn't mean to offend you. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me." Chu Hen had just arrived at the Thousand Crane sect, so he didn't want to cause trouble for himself. If Qi life wasn't in danger just now, then he wouldn't have interfered in their conflict. However, Gu Guanyu didn't appreciate his two apologies. Gu Guanyu laughed coldly and said, "It's easy for me to not pursue the matter today. The one who started the trouble should be untied. You." Gu Guanyu pointed at Qi while a strange smile appeared on his face. "I'll let this matter rest if you sever your own arm." "Sever my own arm?" As soon as these words were spoken, the others in the surroundings were shocked. Qi face turned pale, and he spoke furiously in a low voice. "You want me to sever my own arm? Dream on." "Hee, you said it yourself." Gu Guanyu chuckled while killing intent surged into his eyes. Chu Hen raised his arm to stop Qi, and then he smiled warmly. "Brother Qi, you shouldn't be angry. You should be happy." The others couldn't help but be stunned. Chu Hen continued, "The reason he wants to cripple your arm is entirely because he's afraid of you. He's afraid that it won't be long before you surpass him. At that time, you wouldn't be the one to be beaten up." These words were like a wake-up call. The crowd was in an uproar. They immediately understood why Gu Guanyu was so determined to kill Qi. It turned out that Gu Guanyu wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of Qi. Gu Guanyu's face instantly turned dark when Chu Hen saw through his thoughts. He scolded angrily, "Bastard, do you think I'm afraid of him? Don't spout nonsense here. Otherwise, I won't forgive you." "He's flustered and exasperated. Looks like it's true." Hua Shui interrupted. However, what she said instantly added fuel to the fire. Gu Guanyu was enraged. Without another word, he raised a surging palm force towards Chu Hen and the others in front of him. All of you, shut up. Hua Shui was so scared that she hurriedly hid behind Chu Hen's back. She shouted as if wishing for the whole world to be in chaos. Chu Hen beat him. You're really good at causing trouble for me. Chu Hen rolled his eyes at Gu Guanyu. His original intention was to resolve this peacefully and try his best to avoid conflict. However, judging from the current situation, being calm and peaceful could no longer solve any problems. Buzz. Immediately, a particularly vigorous and shocking aura exploded from within Chu Hen's body. A layer of strange golden flame was spitting out from Chu Hen's body. The restless power set off waves of air waves. Boom! The two's auras collided like two waves and splashed brilliantly in the air. A thick wave of air waves spread out and the surrounding crowd was shaken to the point that they took a few steps back. However, what was surprising was that Gu Guanyu's aura was actually suppressed by Chu Hen. There was an obvious gap between their auras. As expected, he was someone with some ability. Otherwise, he would not have provoked Gu Guanyu. Humph! Gu Guanyu's eyes turned cold. He moved and pounced like a cheetah pouncing on its prey. He spun in the air and did a backspin kick that swept towards Chu Hen's head. An extremely strong wind pounced towards Chu Hen's face. The space was filled with a piercingly cold sound of wind and thunder. A thick gray light rose like a hellfire and covered Gu Guanyu's leg. The lethality contained in this attack was absolutely terrifying. Brat, today I will let you know that there is a price to pay for standing up for others. An extremely strong power poured down. Bang! A violent tremor splashed in the air. The surrounding people's pupils shrank faintly. They saw Chu Hen clasping Gu Guanyu's ankle with one hand. The fierce and domineering aura on Gu Guanyu's body was instantly suppressed. You! Gu Guanyu's eyes widened in shock. Chu Hen had a playful and frivolous smile on his face. He raised his eyebrows and shook his head gently. Is that all you've got? Sarcasm, absolute sarcasm. Everyone's gaze towards Chu Hen could not help but change a few times. Gu Guanyu's expression darkened and the Yuan Dan in his body quickly revolved. A hidden force that was like a surging tide flowed out from his leg and shook off Chu Hen's hand. Following that, Gu Guanyu whipped out his leg and fiercely swept towards Chu Hen's neck. Get down! Gu Guanyu's eyes revealed a trace of ferocity. Along with the rapid speed of the wind, a series of leg shadows exploded in the air. At the same time, the gray light covering his body quickly solidified and formed a thick layer of rock armor in the blink of an eye. However, at this moment, Chu Hen also made a move. The moment before Gu Guanyu's attack reached Chu Hen's body, a dazzling silver light and golden flame exploded in front of everyone. Everyone's eyes widened as they saw Chu Hen lift his leg high and ruthlessly sweep his opponent's chest, so fast. This guy. Bang. What followed was a particularly heavy muffled sound. The overbearing and terrifying power surged down like a mountain. Gu Guanyu's eyes widened in anger. The rock layer in the center of his chest immediately cracked, and the piece of clothing also exploded into powder. Accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, Gu Guanyu's chest caved in, and then his entire body flew out. Boom! Gu Guanyu was dragged on the ground like a sandbag. Every inch of the stone bricks was broken, and rocks of all sizes flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, there was a ditch that was dozens of meters long on the ground. Gu Guanyu was extremely embarrassed. Blood gushed out of his mouth, but he could not even get up. The whole place was silent. Everyone's eyes were wide open. This was too frightening. He kicked the palace disciple dozens of meters away. Everyone's heart was like a surging tide, setting off all kinds of wild waves. Li Nanhai shook his head and sighed. He murmured in a low voice, I told you not to provoke him, but you didn't listen. The corners of the eyes of the disciples from the Thousand Cranes sect couldn't help but twitch. So, Li Nanhai's intention to dissuade Gu Guanyu wasn't to ask him to let Chu Hen and Qi Ting off. It was to warn Gu Guanyu not to provoke Chu Hen. This was really comical. Such an instant change was truly unexpected. Chu Hen smiled lightly and said, "Can we leave now?" That smile was especially terrifying in Gu Guanyu's opinion, and his eyes were filled with dense fear. Qi Ting heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time that he felt grateful, he exclaimed with admiration in his heart. Just a short while ago, Chu Hen was someone who was on almost the same level as him. Yet now the gap between them was so huge. Fortunately, he didn't become enemies with Chu Hen, and he chose to befriend Chu Hen instead. Otherwise, the grass on his grave would probably be over a meter tall next year. Chu Hen spoke casually, "Let's go." The others behind him nodded and prepared to leave. Wait! Just at this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 419. Everyone's expressions changed when they saw the young men and women who suddenly appeared. Almost everyone's gazes were gathered on the young man who exuded a sharp aura. He could be considered handsome, but the arrogance between his brows made people dislike him. Meng Hong. Li Nanhai's face turned pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. "Who is this person? Why are you so afraid?" Hua Shui asked curiously. Li Nanhai frowned. He first glanced at Chu Hen, and then said in a low voice, "Meng Hong, one of the top 3 disciples in the hall. His cultivation has reached the peak of the 3rd rank of the void-piercing realm, and he's only a step away from the 4th rank. But we didn't provoke him." "You don't know." Li Nanhai shook his head. "I forgot to remind you that Gu Guanyu is Meng Hong's man. One of the top 3 disciples in the hall." The appearance of Meng Hong and the others caused the atmosphere in the arena to become slightly strange. Gu Guanyu, who was lying on a pile of rocks, looked as if he had seen his savior. "Meng, senior brother Meng Hong, help me! Ha ha!" Meng Hong smiled indifferently as a smile surged out from between his raised brows. He glanced at Gu Guanyu and said, "You really deserve it. Do you know that junior brother Chu Hen defeated Zhang Tianxiang in the 1000 Beast Ridge? Aren't you just looking for trouble by provoking him?" "What? Defeated Lu Tianxiang?" There was an uproar when he said that. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Hen with astonishment and surprise. "He's Chu Hen? Who? Why don't I know?" "I heard from a fellow disciple who came back from the 10,000 Beasts Ridge 2 days ago. He said that they met an acquaintance of senior sister Shilan in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge, and he defeated Lu Tianxiang. He even came to our 1000 Crane sect. No wonder he's so powerful. He really lives up to his name." Once Chu Hen's identity was exposed, it caused a lot of discussion. Gu Guanyu's lips moved slightly. He was shocked, angry, and regretful. He didn't expect to kick an iron plate this time. However, since Meng Hong had come out, he would at least demand an explanation from the other party. Meng Hong looked back at Chu Hen, a hint of sharpness hidden under his gentle smile. He raised his head slightly and smiled with great interest. "Half a year ago, I fought Lu Tianyang once. At that time, I barely defeated him with a single move. However, I only used less than 90% of my strength." Clearly, Meng Hong's tone was filled with pride. This was like a glorious achievement for him. Many people around him cast envious and amazed gazes at him. Chu Hen's expression did not change. He spread out his hands and said with a smile, "Senior Meng Hong's strength is extraordinary. I am impressed. But what does this have to do with me?" Meng Hong's eyelids twitched and he was still smiling. "I just want to tell you not to think too highly of yourself just because you won against palm extinction. It's better to keep a low profile, especially all of you newcomers. Although it's good for you to have a little edge, it's not a good thing to have too much edge sometimes." It was not a suggestion but a warning. "I think you're mistaken." Chu Hen raised his hands slightly and glanced at the people around him. Everyone here can prove that I apologized to Senior Brother Gu Guanyu twice, and he was the one who attacked first. How else should I keep a low profile? Meng Hong's unyielding counterattack caused the atmosphere to turn cold. Li Nanhai was secretly anxious, and he quickly tried to persuade Meng Hong. Senior Brother Meng Hong, it's not Chu Hen's fault. I was the one who didn't stop the fight in time. Please don't make things difficult for him. Qi Ting stepped forward and said, "It's all because of me. Feel free to look for me if you need anything." Chu Hen couldn't help but feel slightly amused. He turned around to face them and said, "Both of you have confused me. What did the two of you do wrong? Can you make it clearer?" "What did I do wrong?" Qi Ting and Li Nanhai exchanged glances, and they couldn't help but be speechless. "Right. What did I do wrong? What did Chu Hen do wrong? It seems like I didn't do anything wrong. Since it's like that, then why should I apologize?" Meng Hong smiled and raised his hand slightly. "Make your move." "Oh? May I know what reason Senior Brother Meng Hong has to make a move against me?" Chu Hen replied with a question fearlessly. "There's no reason. I just want to see exactly what ability you have to think so highly of yourself before me. What if I don't make a move?" "Nothing. At most, you'll be kicked out of the Thousand Cranes sect." From the beginning until the end, Meng Hong had been smiling as he spoke. However, everyone was able to sense the domineering, sharp, and cold aura that came from him. It was the first time in the Thousand Cranes sect that a hall disciple ranked in the top 3 of the palace hall was competing so seriously with a temporary disciple who hadn't even officially joined the sect yet. However, since Chu Hen had defeated Terminus Tianxiang, everyone felt anticipation in their hearts. "Haha. Looks like I have no choice but to make a move today, right?" A slight arc arose on the corners of Chu Hen's mouth. "Wipe your eyes and wait," Meng Hong replied in a light tone. At the same time, an extremely restless and powerful aura surged out from within Meng Hong. The powerful aura caused piercingly cold waves of energy to rumble through the surroundings, and it was countless times stronger than Gu Guanyu's aura. The crowd in the surroundings couldn't help but move back. Qi Ting, Hua Shui, Lu Qi, and Li Nanhai couldn't help but reveal slightly solemn expressions. Meng Hong was able to defeat Terminus Tianxiang with less than 90% of his strength, so his strength absolutely couldn't be underestimated. Just at that moment, the aura emitted from Chu Hen's body also became a bit colder. After that, Chu Hen's left hand brushed past his eyes, and he said in a cold voice, Since Senior Brother Meng Hong is so interested, then I'll gladly accept." Buzz. Suddenly, Chu Hen's eyelids opened, and then a strange and evil aura emanated from his eyes. A strange violet glow appeared in his eyes. "What's this?" Everyone's expressions changed. In the next moment, a cold gale arose, and a cold current invaded the world. OM. Accompanied by tsunami-like cold currents, endless darkness suddenly swallowed this area. The heavens and the earth dimmed, and the clouds surged. The sky instantly fell into darkness, and dense dark clouds blotted out the sky and enveloped the sky above everyone. The environment before everyone's eyes changed drastically in an instant. The mountains, waterfalls, and vegetation in the distance seemed to be instantly covered in a layer of dark gray light. In the void, among the dark clouds, a blood-red moon was extremely strange. Immediately after, the distance between Chu Hen and Meng Hong was suddenly pulled apart. Before, they were only separated by a few meters, but now they were separated by over 100 meters in an instant. As for the surrounding people, it was as if they were even further apart. Everyone's eyes could only see Chu Hen and Meng Hong. It was like a dream, real and fake at the same time. Under the blood-red moon, Chu Hen and Meng Hong looked at each other from afar. Illusion. Illusion. Oh my God, this guy actually knows how to use illusion? Everyone was shocked. Chu Hen's illusion was not only targeted at Meng Hong, but almost everyone was in the same situation. Meng Hong was also shocked. At this moment, he had a vague feeling that something was wrong. Chu Hen's abilities had already exceeded the scope of his knowledge. However, Meng Hong did not panic too much. His powerful aura locked onto Chu Hen, who was in front of him. It's just an illusion. I only need to lock onto you, the rest is all fake, hee hee. An evil smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Are you sure? Boom! Shortly after, Chu Hen's eyes, which were blossoming with a magnificent purple light, once again exploded with a demonic red light. Immediately after, countless red shadows were released from Chu Hen's pupils. Ga, woo woo! Along with the extremely noisy and ear-piercing screeches, a flock of blood-red crows filled the sky. The strange scene was so real that it was terrifying. In an instant, a swarm of blood-red crows filled the sky and flew around Meng Hong. A trace of panic flashed in the latter's eyes, and a powerful aura erupted from his body. It was as if a huge wave of energy was crashing towards the crows. At this moment, the sky full of blood-red crows increased in speed and shot towards Meng Hong like a sharp arrow. As they moved, every blood-red crow emitted a strange red glow and rapidly transformed into a sharp cross-shaped flying dagger. The cross-shaped flying dagger was more than a meter long. It rotated at high speed like a spiral dart, tearing through the air and creating an endless destructive aura as it slashed towards Meng Hong from all directions. Boom! Bang! The incomparably sharp cross-shaped flying dagger was unstoppable. It easily penetrated the powerful True Yuan aura that Meng Hong had emitted. Like splitting waves, it broke through the vast True Yuan along the way and hit Meng Hong's body. Meng Hong's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. His face instantly turned extremely pale. Hiss! The cross-shaped flying dagger that emanated a blood-red glow flashed through his body, causing dazzling blood to spray into the surroundings while a long and narrow wound appeared on his chest. The intense pain caused Meng Hong's eyes to open wide with rage, and they almost split apart from rage. After that, the second and third dagger pierced through his body. Blood sprayed through the air as they tore through his flesh and broke his bones. It was a horrifying sight to behold. An extremely miserable and shrill cry resounded from Meng Hong's mouth. All the disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect felt their scalps go numb while their legs trembled. Incessant blood-red daggers struck Meng Hong's body without restraint. Crisscrossed bloody marks covered his body, and it only took a few moments for Meng Hong to be covered in blood. The aura of slaughter enveloped the world, and the entire area fell into a state of unrest. Chapter 420. An extremely shrill and miserable cry resounded from Meng Hong, and it caused everyone's scalps to go numb. In just a few blinks of the eye, Meng Hong had become covered in blood. The aura of slaughter suffused the surroundings while dark clouds enveloped the world, making it seem like a dream. Numerous blood-red crows transformed into spiraling blades that slashed incessantly against Meng Hong's body. He seemed to have become a punching bag, and the formidable aura he'd just released was instantly suppressed. Hiss! When the last blood-red spiraling cross-flying dagger pierced through Meng Hong's body, fresh blood spurted out from all over his body. His two arms hung limply, and with a bang, he fell to his knees on the ground. OM. At the moment Meng Hong knelt down, everyone's hearts trembled slightly. After that, the darkness that devoured this area swiftly vanished, and the surging dark clouds that enveloped the sky, the blood-red moon that hung high in the sky, the dark gray color that covered the waterfall, and so on and so forth. A string of illusionary scenes vanished in the blink of an eye, and the beautiful scenery from before had returned to everyone's field of vision. The illusion had been resolved. All of them instantly felt as if their bodies and minds had been released, and the pressure they felt had vanished without a trace. However, the scene that unfolded before them caused the disciples of the Thousand Cranes sect to be extremely shocked once more. They saw that Chu Hen and Meng Hong had returned to where they stood earlier, and they were merely a few meters away from each other. The terrifying attack that had struck Meng Hong earlier had been an illusion as well. However, to everyone's shock, Meng Hong was kneeling on the ground with his arms pressed up against the ground. His countenance was pale as a sheet, and he was shivering and unable to move. "Senior brother Meng Hong?" The young men and women behind him exclaimed loudly, and then they moved forward with the intention of helping Meng Hong up. Don't touch me." Meng Hong stopped them in a low voice. All of them were shocked, and they were at a loss for what to do. One of the young women asked, "Senior brother Meng Hong, what's wrong?" Meng Hong was still kneeling on the ground while trembling. The veins on his forehead and neck bulged like dragons. There clearly weren't any injuries on his body, but it seemed like he was enduring great pain. "Stinking brat, what did you do to senior brother Meng Hong?" a young man questioned Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes were as dark as ink as he calmly replied, "Aren't I standing right here? I didn't even touch him." "You!" The young man's face darkened before he turned to the people behind him and said, "You guys, help senior brother Meng Hong find the medical elder." And the others nodded. "All of you better not touch him." Suddenly, the cold voice of a woman resounded. Following that, the airflow in the air faintly trembled, and a few red petals drifted down. A shadow flashed past, and a beautiful figure in a white dress suddenly appeared on the platform. "Hua! Senior Sister Hanlu." Wow, even Senior Sister Hanlu was alarmed. How rare! The entire arena was instantly filled with clamorous noises. Ji Shu, who stood behind Chu Hen, raised her eyebrows and murmured, "What a powerful Reiki energy fluctuation. She's a spiritual tattoo master." Spiritual tattoo master. A spirit-rank spiritual tattoo master that stood above advanced spiritual tattoo masters. Moreover, Chu Hen had heard of the name Yen Hanlu before. She was one of the 7 absolutes, absolute formation. She was ranked 3rd among the 7 absolutes, far ahead of absolute formation Tian Xiang. At the same time, Yen Hanlu had another identity as one of the 5 core disciples of the Thousand Crane sect. This was also the reason why everyone was so surprised when she appeared. Under normal circumstances, core disciples rarely showed themselves. As existences that stood at the top of the pyramid in the Thousand Crane sect, they were the center of attention no matter where they went. The young man from before asked, "Senior Sister Hanlu, what about senior brother Meng Hong? He won't die." Yen Hanlu replied indifferently, "The illusory art I cast on him hasn't disappeared completely. He'll return to normal soon." As soon as she finished speaking, Yen Hanlu looked at Chu Hen with a hint of admiration in her almond-shaped eyes. "That's a pretty good illusory art. Where did you learn it?" Li Nanhai, who stood by Chu Hen's side, revealed an excited expression when he heard Yen Hanlia's praise. Everyone in the Thousand Crane sect knew how high the status of a core disciple was. If he could befriend any of the core disciples, it would be a good thing for him. However, Chu Hen remained calm and nodded politely. "You're too kind, Senior Sister Hanlu." "My illusory art, Chu Hen?" Right at this moment, another gentle female voice resounded. After that, a purple-haired young lady appeared. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but light up, and she attracted everyone's attention. "Instructor." Chu Hen was pleasantly surprised. "Are all of you all right?" Shilan walked over to Chu Hen and the others with ripples in her limpid eyes. Earlier, she'd received a notice from Li Nanhai that Qi Ting and Gu Guanyu had entered the life and death arena. However, Li Nanhai hadn't told her that Chu Hen was here as well, and he didn't say if there was anything wrong. However, Shilan had still rushed over. Chu Hen shook his head and smiled to indicate that there was nothing wrong. At the same time, the surrounding people were somewhat unsettled. Anyone could see that Shilan's gaze towards Chu Hen was clearly filled with concern that was different from that of an ordinary person. Shilan is actually so concerned about Chu Hen? What's the relationship between the two of them? Although Shilan was only a hall disciple, her status in the hearts of the disciples of the Thousand Crane sect wasn't inferior to the 5 great core disciples at all. Even among the disciples of the other sects in the 100 Nations state, the name Beauty She was well known. The worry in Shi Lan's eyes dissipated. She turned to look at the elegant and refined figure on the stage, and a trace of surprise appeared between her brows. Yen Hanlu and Shi Lan weren't very familiar with each other, or rather, they didn't have many interactions. However, since they were from the same sect, they exchanged a simple look as a form of acknowledgement. Yen Hanlu smiled faintly and said, "Junior sister Shi Lan, are these the people you brought?" Shi Lan nodded. "Yes. They're all very good. Looks like this year's disciple test is going to be lively." Yen Hanlu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Chu Hen with a smile. Then, runes flashed around her body, and talismans as dazzling as spirit butterflies fluttered in the air. Then, the space faintly twisted. With a slight tremble, Yen Hanlu disappeared from her place. What an exquisite transferring spiritual formation! Jishu's eyes lit up and she said in surprise. Jishu, who also had a high attainment in the field of spiritual formation, seemed to be quite interested in Yen Hanlu. Hua Shui opened her eyes wide and asked, "Senior sister Jishu, are you better than her?" Jishu smiled. "Her realm has reached the level of spiritual tattooist, and the strength of Reiki energy alone is stronger than mine. She's definitely better. But senior sister Jishu, you know so many strange formations. That doesn't mean others know less." "Fine. But it doesn't matter. In 2 days, I'll refine a Hunyuan pill, which will definitely help you break through the bottleneck of spiritual tattooist." "Forget it," Nongqi said angrily. "You said you wanted to refine Hunyuan pill a year ago. When did you really refine it? You're too lazy." Hua Shui pouted. "Are you blaming me? Wouldn't I be chasing after head ram every day? Where would I find the time?" The crowd didn't pay attention to the conversation of the Xiaoya heads beside Chu Hen. Most of them were still trying to figure out the meaning of Yen Hanlia's words. This year's disciple assessment was going to be lively. Although it seemed to be a casual sentence, it seemed to have another meaning coming from Yen Hanlia's mouth. But then again, there had never been such a fierce newcomer before. Before entering the sect, he had defeated 2 palace disciples in a row. One of them was ranked in the top 3. At this moment, Meng Hong gradually returned to normal, and the illusory power on him had almost faded. Under the different gazes of the surrounding people, he slowly stood up. His face was dark and ashen, and his gaze was filled with coldness as he angrily glared at Chu Hen. "Bastard, I won't forgive you." After saying that, Meng Hong fiercely swung his sleeves and quickly left the place with a black face. Shi Lan frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, "Did you do that just now?" She had arrived rather late, so she hadn't seen the scene of Chu Hen using the illusory technique on Meng Hong. Just now, Shi Lan had been puzzled, wondering why Meng Hong would kneel on the ground, thinking that he had offended absolute formation. Yen Hanlu. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. Chu Hen lightly sniffed and shook his head with a smile. "It's none of my business, mentor. He was the one who insisted on stopping me. He said that if I didn't make a move, I wouldn't let him leave. I had no choice." Shi Lan was both angry and amused. The other party was really taking advantage of the situation, yet he was still pretending to be obedient. Besides being surprised, Shi Lan found it increasingly difficult to see through Chu Hen. "Forget it, let's go." And immediately Chu Hen, Qi Ting, and the others followed Shi Lan and left the place. After watching the show, the crowd that had gathered there also left one after another. From the expressions of many people, it could be seen that they were still somewhat unsatisfied with the powerful illusory technique that Chu Hen had just used. On a mountain peak to the south of the deathmatch arena, 2 young figures stood proudly at the top of the enormous mountain peak, looking indifferently at the gradually dispersing crowd in front of them. The auras that these 2 people exuded were hidden and very steady, but the feeling they gave off was that they were especially powerful. One of the men, who was dressed in blue and had an imposing appearance, suddenly revealed a faint smile and said with interest, "Tianchen, you've met a love rival." The other man beside him had an even more extraordinary bearing. There was a fierce eagle tattooed on the chest of his robes. The eagle spread its wings, sharp as a sword. "Humph!" he sneered disdainfully, and a sharp light flashed in his ice-cold eyes. "Love rival? Is he even worthy?" Chapter 421. Along with the incident that occurred in the life and death arena, the news of the temporary disciple, Chu Hen, defeating 2 Hall disciples in succession had spread throughout the Thousand Crane sect. Especially when they heard that even Meng Hong hadn't been able to resist Chu Hen's illusion technique, it caused all the higher-ups and elders of the Thousand Crane sect to be even more shocked. Even though the test for new disciples hadn't begun yet, there was no doubt in everyone's hearts that Chu Hen's ascension to become a disciple of the Thousand Crane sect was definitely confirmed. However, as the recruitment test of the Thousand Crane sect approached, the entire sect fell into a tense atmosphere. Besides the recruitment test for new disciples, the Thousand Crane sect had a few other tests. They were respectively the promotion of official disciples into inner court disciples, the advancement of inner court disciples into the Hall disciples, and the competition for the rankings of the Hall disciples. In other words, the recruitment test of the Thousand Crane sect was conducted towards practically all the disciples of the sect. As for the recruitment test, it was merely a portion of it. The recruitment test will begin in a few days. I'm truly filled with anticipation. What the fuck are you looking forward to? Could it be that you'll be able to become a Hall disciple? That might not necessarily be the case. One must have a dream, and it might come true in the slightest. Don't worry, this dream of yours is just a pipe dream. It'll definitely not come true. Fuck you. I heard that the ones in charge of the recruitment test this time are the core disciples of Ko Tianchen and Sherwin Star. The elders of the other sects are in charge of the recruitment test, but the disciples of our Thousand Crane sect are in charge of everything. How worrying! What's there to worry about? The status of core disciples isn't inferior to the higher-ups of the sect. Moreover, was the ability of Ko Tianchen and Sherwin Xing's 2 senior brothers still worth doubting? When have they ever made a mistake in the assignments they carried out? You're right. Don't think so much about it. Seize these next few days to quickly improve your cultivation, so as to avoid falling behind. During the last few days, Chu Hen had been constantly moving between Minor Forest Peak and the Meteor Dao platform. Comparatively speaking, he'd been staying at the Meteor Dao platform for a longer period of time. With the help of the heavenly meteorite, Chu Hen's cultivation speed of the 7-star scripture was also very fast. From start to finish, he only used around 10 days of time before he was able to circulate the cultivation method of the second level, the Sun Genesis section, in a comparatively skilled manner. Chu Hen's cultivation was also improving steadily. Qi Ting didn't see anyone for 2 or 3 days. Perhaps it was because he had received quite a bit of stimulation in the life and death arena, but Qi Ting had been particularly diligent in his cultivation recently. As for Fu Qin, Ji Shu and the others, they hardly came to look for Chu Hen. After all, with Nongqi's practically abnormal senses, Chu Hen would definitely be noticed as soon as he left the Thousand Crane sect. During this period of time, Hua Shui had nothing to do, so she went to chat with Chu Hen for a while. As for Xilan, because the exam was approaching, many of the higher-ups of the Thousand Crane sect were busy, so she rarely came to visit Chu Hen in the past few days. Little Forest Peak. At the back of the mountain, Chu Hen sat on a boulder as he absorbed the energy of the world into his body. His presence was even, and strands of golden flames revolved around him. After a few days, the demon chi of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird had completely fused with Chu Hen's soul core. With the fusion of the power of a demon emperor, Chu Hen's true chi increased in strength once again. Originally, Chu Hen's true qi was far more brutal than Wu Xiu's when he was at the same level as him due to the bloodline power of the chaotic body. Now that it had fused with the power of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird, it was even more brutal and forceful. With this true qi as the foundation, the martial skills he used were even more powerful than the martial skills he used with regular true qi. After tasting the benefits of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird, Chu Hen obviously wanted to do it a few more times. Buzz! Before long, the senses of Chu Hen's soul entered his body and sensed the location of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. In the dim and hazy chaotic world, the stars moved and the sky was vast. The huge, demon-like figure and the purple eyes of the demon god stood on either side, suppressing the sacred winged heavenly flame bird in the middle. The transparent square was like a huge glass box. Black light flickered on its surface and purple light surged. It sealed 6 sides, forming an indestructible barrier that trapped the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. Screech, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow let out a sharp cry. Its aura surged and golden flames rose. Colorful holy light lingered above and below its wings. Layers upon layers of scorching air waves continuously battered the transparent square body. Hee, I've come to see you again, Chu Hen said with a smirk. The sacred winged heavenly flame bird let out a low warning sound. Its cold eyes flashed with a vicious light. An extremely violent aura continuously rose and surged around his body. The powerful aura caused people's hearts to tremble. However, Chu Hen was no longer afraid of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. His chaotic body directly unleashed the power of his bloodline, and the huge, demon-like figure erupted with a mountainous pressure. It extended its arms towards the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. Buzz! Buzz! The surging flames surged within Chu Hen's body. The black figure's arms extended into the transparent square like they were passing through a screen of water. Along with the strange black light that stacked up recklessly, streaks of black light swept out and shot towards the sacred winged heavenly flame bird aggressively. Screech! At this moment, a ball of rainbow flames seemed to dance in the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's icy cold eyes. Subsequently, a wave of gorgeous multicolored light spread out from his body. It was vast like a tide and ferocious like a wave, and it directly collided with the countless black light rays, causing the light rays to be bounced back. Chu Hen was secretly surprised. The sacred winged heavenly flame bird actually dared to resist. However, what quickly followed was a wave of extremely uneasy, evil, and ruthless aura exploding out. Following that, a cold voice that was as cold as an icicle exploded in Chu Hen's mind. Humph! Don't tell me you really want to die? The cold voice was deep and hoarse. It was difficult to tell whether it was male or female, but it was filled with killing intent. Hearing this sudden startled voice, Chu Hen, who was not prepared at all, felt his scalp tingle. Afterwards, Chu Hen saw a similar amount of anger from the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's cold eyes. Clearly, the voice had come from the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. You can actually speak? However, Chu Hen composed himself very soon. It was common knowledge that the higher the level of a demonic beast, the more intelligent it was. Demonic beasts above the level of beast kings already possessed the ability to think. Powerful existences that had reached the level of beast kings were no less intelligent than humans. It was said that there were even more powerful demonic beasts that could speak and take human form. Although Chu Hen could not confirm what level of demonic beast the sacred winged heavenly flame bird was, based on the fact that it had been sealed in the 10,000 Beast Ridge for close to 1,000 years, its level should be above beast kings. It was not rare for it to be able to speak human language. Shameless human, if you dare to draw another strand of my demonic power, I'll make you regret it. The cold voice rang in Chu Hen's ears again. Chu Hen suppressed the shock in his heart and replied with a cold smile. Heh, do you think I'm afraid of you? If you have the ability, why don't you escape? Do you think I can't get out? Of course, go out and show me. Although Chu Hen expressed his disdain, he was actually quite worried. Who knew if the other party would fight to the death when it got angry? However, Chu Hen knew that he could not show the slightest bit of fear in this situation. He had to first figure out the other party's strength. Only by knowing oneself and knowing the enemy would he not be at a disadvantage. I've already said that if you dare to touch another strand of my demonic power, I'll definitely make you die a horrible death. Hee, you really scared me to death. You don't believe me? I believe you, of course I believe you. Chu Hen feigned a relaxed smile and said, however, I think that if you make me die a horrible death, you won't be able to live either. The sacred winged heavenly flame bird did not reply, but the coldness in its eyes intensified. The other party's silence confirmed Chu Hen's guess. This fellow indeed had some misgivings, which was why it did not dare to fight with Chu Hen. Previously in the 10,000 Beast Ridge, you paid a huge price to break through the 2 seals, right? The current you is worlds apart from when you were at your peak. I believe that you have the ability to escape from my body, but if you do that, you'll become even weaker. Any random person in the outside world can pose a destructive threat to you. I'm right? Chu Hen pretended to be calm and acted as if he knew everything, purposefully probing the other party's strength. The sacred winged heavenly flame bird's aura grew colder and colder. It thought to itself, this young brat is not stupid at all. So what if you're right? You won't dare to expose your secret. I'm hiding in your body, so what can you do to me? The secret that the other party was referring to was naturally the matter of Chu Hen's 2 great bloodline boundaries. Chu Hen could not send the other party away by himself, so the only way was to ask someone else for help. However, if he did that, it was very likely that the secret of the chaotic body and the sacred demonic eye bloodline boundaries would be exposed, so Chu Hen would also be in an awkward position. I don't care. I'll weaken you every 2 or 3 days. Do you think I won't exhaust you to death? I'll say it one last time. If you dare to absorb my demonic power again, I'll take you down with me, warned the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. Fuck you, bitch. Chapter 422. How about this? Just leave my body obediently and I won't extract your demonic energy. You and I will go our separate ways. What do you think? Chu Hen said. It was indeed dangerous to have such a monster in his body. Who knew if it couldn't figure it out one day and decided to self-destruct, conveniently dragging him down with it. By then, it would be too late to cry. Humph. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow sneered and replied disdainfully, You rascal, are you afraid now? Weren't you very cocky when you stole my demonic energy? Afraid of your aunt? Afraid? You're no better. Say it. Are you going to leave or not? Chu Hen's attitude started to harden. Since I've found you, how can I leave so easily? You! Wait, found me? Chu Hen couldn't help but stare blankly. Then, he abruptly woke up, as if he suddenly understood something. It wasn't a coincidence that you rushed into my body. You did it on purpose? No comment. Chu Hen suddenly had the urge to curse. It was no wonder that when the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow broke the double seal and caused an earth-shattering commotion, Chu Hen had always felt a vague and strange aura following him when he was escaping with everyone. At that time, he had only thought it was the aftershock of an energy riot and hadn't thought much about it. Now, it seemed that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was following him. After he rescued Lu Qi, it wasn't an accident that he was attacked by that colorful light pillar. It was purely intentional. Although Xilan had pushed Chu Hen away at the crucial moment, Chu Hen had still forcefully dragged that energy back. Once he figured it out, Chu Hen felt his scalp go numb. This sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was really scary. It turned out that it wasn't really going to exchange its death for freedom. It had other plans and conspiracies. After a short silence, Chu Hen's emotions gradually calmed down. His voice was ice-cold as he shouted in a deep voice. What exactly is your purpose? A trace of surprise flashed across the sacred wing heavenly flame bird's sharp eyes. It did not expect Chu Hen to regain his composure so quickly. This young fellow was more difficult to deal with than it had imagined. There was dead silence, some silence. Around the time it takes to finish half a cup of tea, the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow replied in a deep voice, "I want to make a deal with you." A deal? As soon as these words were spoken, Chu Hen was surprised and bewildered, and he was extremely bewildered in his heart. What deal? Share the power of your demon eye with me, what? Chu Hen's heart faintly trembled, and a strong sense of vigilance and caution rose in his heart. The saint-winged heavenly flame bird said playfully, "To be honest, I'm really surprised. I didn't expect to meet one of the 10 strongest saint bodies, the demon eye saint body, in a place like this. The demon eye's energy can fuse with my demon soul's energy, so I need your demon eye's energy to recover my strength. Dream on." Chu Hen retorted without even thinking. "Only a hopelessly stupid person would agree to your deal." "I haven't finished speaking." The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow was rather patient this time. It continued unhurriedly, "I can borrow the power of your demon eye, and conversely, your demon eye can also fuse with my demon soul. Don't think that you're at a disadvantage. Although your demon eye's bloodline is very powerful, it's only at the level of a 3-star demon eye. In terms of power, it's really weak." As a 1,000-year-old demon, the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow seemed to know a lot about the demon eye saint body. In an instant, he had exposed Chu Hen's secret. So what?" Chu Hen replied coldly. "Because the level of your demon eye is still too low. Once we share our power, I'll be the one raising you for a long period of time." "You'll be raising me?" Chu Hen found it a little funny. "But you'll still be the one who benefits in the end. Towards the end, my demon eye's power will need to split into 2. How big do you think the difference is between what you give and what you take from me?" Short-sighted. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow couldn't help but scold back. "With your cultivation speed, you'll never be able to break through to a higher level in your lifetime." "You're right, especially when I have to split my demon eye's power in 2. Don't even think about breaking through in my next life, let alone in this life." Chu Hen retorted without any hesitation. "Wrong." The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow said decisively. "If you agree to work with me, I'll bring you to find a treasure that can help your demon eye's bloodline break through. At that time, the external energy you'll obtain will be enough to fill up half of your power." "Heh, you sound like you're telling the truth. Do you think I'll listen to your nonsense?" Chu Hen's mind didn't waver. Even if the other party was telling the truth, he still had to consider whether he had the ability to work with it. This wasn't asking a tiger for its skin, but nurturing a tiger that would invite disaster. Who could guarantee that the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow wouldn't turn against him after he helped it recover its power? The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow wasn't in a hurry. After all, it had been sealed in the 10,000 Beast Ridge for thousands of years, so it wasn't in a hurry. You can think about it. If you want your demon eye sacred physique to become stronger faster, I'll teach you how to do it." "Thank you." Chu Hen replied impatiently, then continued, "I'll consider your suggestion. However, before that, shouldn't you give me some cooperation gifts? To express your sincerity?" "What do you mean?" Chu Hen snickered. In the next moment, a majestic and domineering aura erupted from Chu Hen's body. He activated his chaotic energy once again, and the gigantic black figure extended its arms towards the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow again. "Bastard, how dare you!" The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow was enraged, and its cold eyes shone with fury. Chu Hen didn't care about anything else. Countless black rays of light shot out from the rising black radiance towards the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow. Then, amidst the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's angry screech, Chu Hen forcefully extracted a portion of its demonic energy once again. "Thank you for your gift," said Chu Hen proudly. "You shameless bastard, this is the last time. If there's a third time, I'll definitely destroy you." Amidst his opponent's angry curses, Chu Hen withdrew his divine sense, and made the demonic energy scatter, converge into his Dantian's aura sea, and fuse with his Yuan Dan. Now that Chu Hen knew the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's objective, he wasn't afraid that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow would try to take him down with it just because he extracted a portion of its demonic energy. At the same time, Chu Hen was secretly amazed. This sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was truly terrifying. It actually set its sights on his sacred demonic pupil body. Fortunately, he was able to suppress the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow with the power of 2 great bloodlines. Otherwise, Chu Hen wouldn't even know what the consequences would be. It was best not to consider the cooperation the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow had mentioned. As for the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow staying in his body and refusing to leave, he could only take it one step at a time. The most important thing right now was to increase his strength as much as possible. In the face of absolute power, there was no need to be afraid of not being able to suppress the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen had already been sitting quietly in the back mountain of the small forest peak for 3 days. The moment he opened his eyes, an otherworldly aura quietly seeped out. A pair of resplendent eyes were as bright as stars, and the heroic spirit between his brows did not lose the sharpness of his youth. Phew! Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief, and a relaxed smile appeared on his face. Needless to say, the strength of the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow was extremely formidable. He just seized a portion of the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's strength, and he actually faintly felt that his origin core was showing signs of cracking. Of course, this was only the precursor to a breakthrough. He still needed a lot of time to truly step into the 3rd level of the void-piercing realm. "I wonder what level I'll reach if I refine and absorb all the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's strength?" Chu Hen muttered to himself. However, he quickly shook his head and denied this thought. Once or twice was fine, but if he did it too many times, it would definitely incur the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's wrath. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow wasn't a docile sheep, and it was impossible for Chu Hen to slaughter it at will. If I remember correctly, today should be the day of the 1,000 Crane Sect's new disciple exam. Chu Hen stood up proudly on the rock, and his bright eyes gazed at the beautiful mountains and rivers in the distance. A trace of faint anticipation surged in his eyes. The new disciple exam was only a part of the content, and the annual exam was practically set for all the disciples of the 1,000 Crane Sect. It should be very bustling. Chu Hen's brows raised, and then his figure transformed into a shadow that vanished on the spot. 1,000 Range Peak. As it neared noon, a large crowd had already gathered on 1,000 Range Peak. There were a total of 3 peaks in the 1,000 Crane Sect. They were respectively Myriad Sky Peak, Xingyu Peak, and 1,000 Range Peak. Myriad Sky Peak was where the sect master and the elders received important guests and discussed important matters of the sect. Xingyu Peak was where the sect assigned assignments and managed the information of all the higher-ups in the sect. The 1,000 Range Peak was the largest of the 3 main peaks. Many of the sect's activities were held here. For example, the sect competition, the 100-year celebration, and so on and so forth. There were many buildings on 1,000 Range Peak, and they were all magnificent and extraordinary. Moreover, there were even towers that stood towering and were surrounded by clouds. It was like a god that was charging into the sky, and it revealed the might of 1,000 peaks. At this moment, countless young men and women of all shapes and sizes were standing on the central square of 1,000 Range Peak. All of them were in their prime, and they emanated the vitality of youth. "Wow, it's so lively! Hua Shui, who loved bustling crowds, opened her bright eyes wide and looked around with surprise. Chapter 423. Wow, it's so lively! Accompanied by Hua Shui, Fu Qin, and Lu Qi, Chu Hen arrived at Thousand Range Peak. There were all kinds of young men and women, some in groups, some standing alone, all of them exuding the vitality of youth. The strength of these people is too low. The highest cultivation base seems to be only the first rank of the void-piercing realm. Hua Shui shook her head and said helplessly. Her heartless words immediately attracted the dissatisfaction of most of the people around them, and all of them cast unfriendly gazes at her. Hua Shui quickly hid behind the zither and smiled embarrassedly. I didn't say anything. Chu Hen, Lu Qi, and Qi Ting were all speechless. These are all newbies who are here for the assessment. They aren't even outer disciples. Do you really expect them to be as crazy as Chu Hen? Lu Qi replied. Chu Hen touched his nose. Why did you drag me into this? Just using you as a comparison. Everyone smiled. Just as Lu Qi said, the participants of the exam today were all new disciples that hadn't even joined the sect yet, and they were the lowest level in the Thousand Crane sect. Most of the people here were at the middle or late stage of the 6th level of the core transformation realm or above. Those who were able to reach the void-piercing realm could be said to be existences that were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. The Thousand Crane sect had a preliminary standard when recruiting new disciples. Firstly, he was not even 20 years old. Secondly, he had to reach the 5th level of the core transformation realm or above. Only by fulfilling these two conditions would one be qualified to participate in the newcomer assessment. The reason was very simple. A person's talent and comprehension were very important. Possessing a strength at the 5th level of the core transformation realm before the age of 20 meant that the other party possessed good potential and natural endowment. Conversely, if one wasn't able to attain that standard after the age of 20, then it meant that one's comprehension ability and natural endowment were comparatively inferior. The Thousand Crane sect wouldn't take a liking to such a person. Moreover, it wasn't just the Thousand Crane sect. No other sect would raise a group of useless trash. Of course, this was only the preliminary standard. If they couldn't pass the test, they would still be rejected. Those who completed the test would become official disciples. The loser could only leave. The cruel world had always been one of survival of the fittest. Even if this seemed like a simple test, it was still a reflection of this heartless world. However, almost everyone was filled with hope, and everyone was excited and happy. Your mentor Shilan is here, Nongqi suddenly said to Chu Hen. Everyone was startled, and they slowly looked around. Where? Lu Qi asked casually. However, Chu Hen smiled, and his gaze swept towards the left. Over here. Nongqi raised her brows in surprise. You can sense her aura? What? Is there a problem? Chu Hen's face revealed some confusion. Nongqi and Jishu could not help but look at each other. Nongqi continued, that shouldn't be the case. With your strength of the second order of the void-breaking realm, you should not be able to perceive her breath. Upon hearing this, Qi Ting and the others who were playing the zither felt that something was amiss. The reason why Nongqi could sense the arrival of Shilan was because of her superb perception. Chu Hen did not have the other party's perverted perception, but he knew where Shilan was. This did not make sense. You must be talking nonsense, Hua Shui replied. However, just as she finished speaking, a purple-haired girl with a devastatingly beautiful appearance that could cause the downfall of cities and countries appeared in everyone's line of sight. What was unexpected was that the direction that Shilan was coming from was the direction that Chu Hen had pointed out earlier. Wow, you really guessed it. Hua Shui continued. However, Chu Hen himself seemed to have faintly sensed that something was wrong. He was very clear that he was not talking nonsense. He did sense that Shilan was coming from that direction. Including when Shilan went to Xiaolin Peak to find him a few days ago, he did not deliberately check, but he knew that the other party was coming. Chu Hen did not think that his perception had reached the level of Nongqi, because he could only perceive Shilan's breath. For others, he could not do this. This feeling was like there seemed to be a special power in the two of them that produced a strange resonance. It was this indescribable strange resonance that allowed Chu Hen to perceive Shilan's breath. "You are here." Immediately, Shilan arrived at Chu Hen's side. "Mentor," Chu Hen faintly smiled, slightly suppressing the confusion in his heart. Nongqi, Jishu and the others did not deliberately delve into this matter. Anyway, after so many days of contact, everyone also understood that Chu Hen could not be measured by normal standard. Perhaps, as Hua Shui said, it could be a random guess. "Mentor, did you break through?" Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and he noticed that the fluctuation of true essence on Shilan was much stronger than before. She was at the third stage of the void-piercing realm before, and now she had reached the fourth stage. Shilan's beautiful eyes rippled slightly, and she nodded lightly. "Yes, I just broke through this morning." "So that's how it is. No wonder true essence is a little weak." Chu Hen was pleasantly surprised, and he felt sincerely happy for Shilan. On the other hand, Qi Ting, Lu Qi, and the others were astounded and sighed. As expected, like mentor like student, Chu Hen's cultivation speed was already beyond the reach of others, but they never expected that Shilan's natural talent was so terrifying as well. In fact, Shilan's natural talent and comprehension were top-notch in the entire Thousand Crane sect. It was common knowledge that she'd become a Palace Hall disciple before the age of 17. Later on, if it wasn't for the unexpected and early death of her younger brother, Shichen, Shilan wouldn't have been overwhelmed with grief and left the Thousand Crane sect for a few years. Perhaps Shilan's name would be amongst the 5 core disciples now. Of course, there were no ifs in the past. It was exactly because of this that Chu Hen had gotten to know her. Do all of you still need to participate in the entrance exam? If you think it's troublesome, then I can recommend all of you to become inner court disciples. Shilan's red lips parted slightly as she gazed at them with her beautiful eyes. There's no need for that. Qi Ting was the first to refuse. Let's follow the process. In any case, we want to witness what the entrance exam of the Thousand Crane sect is like. Lu Qi nodded in agreement. In order to avoid others from gossiping, it's better for us to rely on our own strength to enter the sect. As for Fu Qin, Hua Shui, and the others, they didn't care at all because they felt that it was fine to treat this exam as a test of their strength. Instructor, are you going to participate in the ranking exam of the Palace Hall disciples? Chu Hen asked. Shilan shook her head. I don't need to participate. Why? This is the will of the higher-ups of the sect. A portion of the higher-ups of the sect are required to stay behind in the sect. After all, the exam is held in the luxuriant forest that's a few hundred kilometers away. If the sect encounters an unexpected situation at this time, then we'll need manpower. Shilan gave a simple explanation. Not all disciples had to participate in the sect's exam every year. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. But the precondition is that your natural talent and strength must be acknowledged by the sect. Perhaps the higher-ups of the sect have other assignments for you, however. Most disciples wouldn't let go of this opportunity to improve their status as disciples. Whoosh! As they spoke, a wave of clamorous noise suddenly arose on the square. After that, over 10 higher-ups of the Thousand Crane sect with extraordinary imposing auras walked over. Under the excited gazes of the crowd, over 10 higher-ups of the Thousand Crane sect ascended the tall platform at the center of the square. The person in the lead was a slightly plump old man. He walked to the front and glanced at everyone with a wise and sharp gaze. I'm Duan Qingshan, the current Grand Elder of the Thousand Crane sect. His steady voice was powerful and resonant, and it gave off a powerful aura. Everyone present here was suppressed by the imposing aura he emanated, and the clamorous noise in the surroundings instantly became extremely silent. The Grand Elder of the Thousand Crane sect? The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. Even though the old man had restrained his aura, his bearing and aura of an expert were heartfelt and convincing. Firstly, I have to thank all of you for thinking highly of our Thousand Crane sect and coming all the way here to participate in our new disciple exam. Those who pass the exam will become official disciples of our sect, and those who fail don't have to feel dispirited. My Thousand Crane sect will still welcome all of you next year or the year after that. Duan Qingshan paused for a moment before he continued. I presume all of you are aware that all of you merely passed the first round of the exam and became official disciples. Now, all of you can choose whether you want to participate in the second round of the exam and advance into the inner court. Advance into the inner court? The eyes of many lit up while excitement appeared on their faces. Of course, the difficulty will definitely increase. Duan Qingshan poured a bucket of cold water over them, and then he continued, if you're able to advance into the inner court, then there's the test to become a palace disciple. After the test ends, you'll even be able to participate in the competition for the rankings of the palace disciples. In short, it can be summed up in a single sentence. So long as you possess the strength to do so, then you'll be able to enter the palace hall in one go and become the highest elite disciple of our Thousand Crane sect. Duan Qingshan's imposing manner caused the blood of all the newcomers to boil. Charging into the ranks of palace disciples in one go was an achievement that all of them yearned for the most. However, since the Thousand Crane sect had been established, very few had been able to accomplish that. Duan Qingshan asked in a loud voice, do all of you have any other questions? All of them remained silent, and the glow of excitement flickered in their eyes. Very good. Now, let me introduce the two core disciples of our sect who are in charge of the exam. As soon as the words core disciples were spoken, their hearts couldn't help but light up. OM. OM. In the next instant, a wave of piercingly cold air suddenly swept through the surroundings, and then the clouds in the sky surged while a powerful aura smashed down towards the heavens and the earth. Along with the trembling space, two dazzling golden beams of light descended from the sky and steadily landed on the left and right sides of the first elder on the high platform. Swoosh! A circle of fierce wind spread out, and two fierce young figures appeared in everyone's line of sight. Chapter 424. OM. Whoosh! As they gazed at the two dazzling pillars of light that descended from the sky, everyone in the surroundings revealed extremely astounded expressions. Along with a fierce gale that swept out along with a wave of fine dust and smoke, two fierce young figures appeared on Duan Qingshan's left and right. Both of them emanated extraordinarily powerful auras. The person on the left wore blue clothes, and he had an extraordinary bearing. He had slanted brows and starry eyes, and his cultured and refined bearing revealed a trace of pride. The person on the right was even more handsome and elegant, and a wisp of a playful smile hung on the corners of his mouth. The clothes on his chest had the pattern of an eagle. The eagle spread its wings, and its imposing aura was fierce and imposing like a ray of light. The blue-clothed man smiled faintly and said, "Hee, I'm sorry. We're late. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm called Sherwin Xing. Ko Tianchen." The man with the eagle pattern on his clothes spoke his name as well. Whoosh! In an instant, an uproar arose on Thousand Range Peak. Many people had looks of envy and respect on their faces. Sherwin Xing, Ko Tianchen, two of the 5 core disciples of the Thousand Crane sect. Even amongst the younger generation of the various sects in the 100 Kingdoms prefecture, they were outstanding figures at the top. However, the bearing of these two people instantly dominated the surroundings as soon as they made an appearance. Chu Hen, who stood by Shilan's side, squinted slightly, and he nodded with praise in his heart. Both of their strengths had attained the peak of the 4th rank of the void-piercing realm, and they were probably only a step away from the 5th rank. The Thousand Crane sect really was filled with geniuses, and it deserved its reputation of being a sect that had been passed down for 1,000 years. These two people are very strong. Hua Shui licked her lips, and then she casually asked Shilan. Are they the two most outstanding people in the Thousand Crane sect? Shilan shook her head, and then her red lips parted slightly as she said, No, there's another personal disciple that the sect master personally taught. He's the strongest amongst the 5 core disciples of our sect. Could it be that he's young Master Yuan, Wu Yuan? Lu Qi blurted out. Yes. Shilan nodded in affirmation. Looks like the Thousand Crane sect has quite a few geniuses, Hua Shui said. Shilan smiled faintly and shook her head. She didn't say anything else. The arrival of the Sherwin planet and Ko Tianqian caused the Thousand-Range Peak to become much more noisy and restless. Great Elder Duan Qingshan looked at the two of them and said, Do you have any instructions? Sherwin Xing shrugged his shoulders. Let's go to the examination grounds first. Anyway, it's not the first time I've done this kind of hard work. Duan Qingshan frowned when he heard the other party's grumbling reply. Be serious. You're so long-winded. I got it. Shi Wenxing replied with dissatisfaction. In the entire Thousand Crane sect, only you 5 core disciples dare to grumble before the Grand Elder. Ko Tianqian calmly replied, Great Elder, leave it to us. You can rest assured that the 2 of us will lead the team. Duan Qingshan did not say anything else. He knew very well how strong these 2 people were. Just now, he was just giving him a reminder out of habit. Duan Qingshan said, Since it's like that, then prepare the teleportation formation. Yes, Grand Elder. The figures of the Thousand Crane sect's higher-ups behind him flashed, and they soared into the sky and spread out. Powerful fluctuations of Reiki energy surged out from within them. Everyone on the square was surprised because all of them were actually 9th-rank talisman masters, and one of them who was slightly older had even attained the attainments of a spirit talisman master. OM. Along with the powerful Reiki energy that whistled out from their bodies, all of them emanated numerous dazzling and gorgeous talismans. Immediately after that, everyone felt the ground beneath their feet tremble slightly, and the talisman masters shot out the talismans they condensed. Over 2,000 talismans rained down like a rain of light and fused into the air. The obscure aura grew even more shocking, and a layer of dazzling silver talismans floated on the spacious ground below the platform. The end of the talisman was connected like flowing silver light, and the strange talisman light was like the ancient and mysterious talisman characters. The senior spirit talisman master shouted, Teleportation formation, activate. Rumble. In the next instant, the talisman emanated a dazzling brilliance, and a silver pillar of light shot into the sky, stirring up waves of chaotic airflow. The silver pillar of light was around 30 meters in diameter, and its interior flickered with light. The space within it was faintly distorted, and it was like a reflection on the surface of water. It was slightly dreamy. This teleportation formation leads to the first location of the test. Duan Qingshan's voice became slightly louder as he looked at the newcomers with a wise gaze, and he could not help but say solemnly, It's worth mentioning that the location of the test this year is the Mang Mountain Forest that's over 250 kilometers away from the back mountain of our sect. What? The Mang Mountain Forest? As soon as these words were spoken, many people's faces turned pale. Speaking of the Mang Mountain Forest, there were very few people in the 100 Nations state who did not know about it. It was a famous forbidden area of death, and its reputation was not inferior to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge at all. However, the reason why the 10,000 Beasts Ridge was famous was that it was rumored to be a demon sealing land. Moreover, the demonic beasts living in the Mang Mountain Forest were much more than those living in the 10,000 Beasts Ridge. Moreover, the death zone of the Mang Mountain Forest was inaccessible, and the terrain was steep. It could be said that it was a place where demonic beasts ran amok, and there were many dangers. The first elder looked at the crowd and continued, During the process of the test, it's hard to guarantee that no one will die because of it. Therefore, those who want to give up before going to the first location of the test can immediately go down the mountain. The test had not yet begun, but the first elder directly poured a basin of cold water on the crowd. Some of the weaker people were struggling in their hearts. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives. It didn't matter if they passed the test, but if they lost their lives, it was really not worth it. You guys take your time to think about it. I'll go over there to prepare first. Sherwin Shing chuckled playfully. Then, he moved and leaped into the teleportation formation. Buzz! The space trembled slightly, and Sherwin Shing immediately turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the silver light pillar. The other core disciple, Ko Tianchen, did not leave immediately. He crossed his arms in front of him and looked at the crowd with interest. Soon after, a few people headed toward the teleportation formation without hesitation. A bunch of cowards. They've been hesitating for so long. It's better for them to go back and wait for their deaths. Don't come back to the sect. Let's go. One by one, the young figures entered the teleportation formation and turned into bright and beautiful shadows that disappeared into the light pillar. After all, there were only a few people who were cowardly. Soon after, the crowd passed through the teleportation formation and headed to the first location of the test. It's time for us to go as well, Qi Ting said confidently. Naturally, it was not only Qi Ting, but Lu Qi, Fu Qin, Hua Shui, and the others were also confident. In their opinion, this kind of test would only be challenging when one was trying to become a palace disciple. As for the tests before that, they were not difficult at all. Instructor, we'll go then, Chu Hen said. Okay. Although your strength is quite good, don't be too careless. Mount Mang is not a safe place. Be careful, Shilan said as she smoothed out Chu Hen's slightly wrinkled collar. It was just a subconscious action, but Shilan's gentleness made everyone around her fall for her. Ko Tianchen, a core disciple who was standing next to the great elder, happened to see this scene. His face suddenly became a little cold, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. Chu Hen gently sniffed and smiled helplessly. Instructor, you're making people hate me. What? Shilan was a little confused. Look at the eyes of these people who want to eat me alive. Shilan was angry and amused at the same time. What are you thinking? You're getting more and more indecent. Then, after Shilan gave a few simple instructions, Chu Hen, Qi Ting, and the others also entered the teleportation formation. The space trembled, and there was a feeling of dizziness. Then, like the others, they turned into rays of light and disappeared on the spot. Shilan was very confident in Chu Hen. After seeing them off, she also left Thousand Range Peak. Ko Tianchen stared at Shilan's departing figure with a profound look in his eyes. She had never paid any attention to him at all from start to finish. This made him, as a core disciple, feel a faint sense of defeat. Now I want to see what ability that man has to make you ignore me. Whoosh! A bright white light flashed in front of them, and their vision became clear. Chu Hen and the others steadily landed on the ground. This is... After they passed through the teleportation formation, they appeared in an ancient small city. It was obvious that this ancient city was quite old. It was dilapidated, full of potholes, and emitted a dense aura of decay and desolation from all directions. The newcomers were in the ancient city's central square. The dilapidated ground was full of holes of all sizes, and it was riddled with holes. There was an ancient stone platform in front of them, and Sherwin Shing and a few high-ranking members of the Thousand Cranes sect were standing on it. A square table was placed in front of them, and a pile of scrolls was placed on the table. Everyone, please stand here. I'll briefly explain the rules of the first round of the test. Sherwin Shing clapped his hands lightly with a frivolous smile on his face. Even though they hadn't become disciples of the Thousand Crane sect yet, they still respected the status and strength of the sect's core disciples. About 1,000 newcomers who were preparing to participate in the test stood in an orderly manner. Sherwin Shing glanced at them, and then he casually picked up a scroll on the table. Chapter 425. Everyone has a scroll with different instructions on it. Complete your mission according to the instructions. You'll have to complete your mission according to the instructions. Sherwen Xing raised the scroll in his hand and spoke loudly. Everyone's eyes lit up slightly, and there was a faint hint of emotion in their eyes. Of course, this is only the beginning of the mission. After you complete the mission, you'll have to head to the next transfer station. When you successfully arrive at the transfer station, it means that you've successfully become an official disciple of the sect. Then, you'll have two choices before you. Sherwen Xing paused for a moment before his brows raised slightly. He said with a spurious smile on his face, "The two choices are to return to the sect to celebrate becoming an official disciple or exchange for a new scroll to take the inner courts test. Naturally, the test will be more difficult than the last. If you fail, you'll still be an official disciple. However, if you're accidentally crippled during the test, the sect won't support you. Even if you lose your life, we'll only collect your corpse at most. At that time, you'll have to consider whether you want to return to the sect or continue participating in the test." Sherwen Xing's words were extremely sharp. Many people felt slightly anxious when they heard this. He believed that after hearing what he said, many people would carefully consider the rest of the itinerary. If all of you complete the inner courts mission, you'll have two choices as well. You can either return to the sect or continue participating in the test to become a palace disciple. If you're lucky and accidentally become a palace disciple, there'll be a competition for the ranking of the palace disciples. Lucky? Accidentally? Sherwen Xing used these two words in a mocking tone, indicating that in his eyes, these people in front of him did not have the ability to reach the palace division. Of course, there were exceptions. Sherwen Xing said, "May I know if any of you have any questions?" "Me." A delicate young woman raised her hand. "Speak. Is there a time limit for the mission?" "Yes." Sherwen Xing answered without hesitation. He looked at everyone and said, "The time limit for every mission is 3 days at most. If you exceed this time limit, then it'll be useless even if you complete the mission in the end. If any of you want to give up halfway, you can go to the transfer station as well. We'll send all of you back to the Thousand Crane sect out of humanitarianism. Does anyone have any questions?" Everyone stopped asking questions because they'd asked all they needed to ask. Xiao. At this moment, another core disciple in charge of the assessment, Ko Tianqian, also arrived through the teleportation array. Ko Tianqian flashed to Sherwen Star's side and calmly asked, "How is it? Have you explained everything clearly?" "I'm done. Let the assessment begin." Sherwen Xing nodded. With a flick of his palm, a dazzling golden scroll appeared in his hand. With a wave of his hand, the golden scroll flew out and landed softly on an empty space below the stage. Buzz buzz. After landing on the ground, the scroll unfurled itself and released a dazzling light. Along with intense energy fluctuations, light patterns flowed on the golden scroll, flickering with a dazzling luster. A circle of strange runes spread out in all directions from the scroll and dispersed. Then, a pale golden pillar of light rose into the air and shot straight into the void. "It's a small teleportation circle," Jishu said softly. "Is it different from the one just now?" Hua Shui asked casually. "The one just now is a medium teleportation circle, which can teleport up to 1,000 miles, while a small teleportation circle can teleport up to a distance of 200 miles. However, this kind of small teleportation circle can be carried around. As long as there's a teleportation receiving point, it can be used at any time and anywhere." "Wow, that's great. Senior Sister Jishu, you should also make one." Jishu shook her head. Although it's only a small teleportation circle, it can only be completed by spiritual tattooists, and the materials are extremely expensive. It's not easy to make. "Okay." Hua Shui pouted unhappily. Chu Hen secretly nodded. Indeed, only the sex could take out these things. The first round of assessment is about to begin. You will take the task scroll in turn and then enter the assessment site from this small teleportation circle, Sherwin Xing said. Everyone's mind shook and they all became alert. I'll go first. Immediately, a young man with the strength of the void-breaking realm took the lead. He took a scroll from the table and then walked toward the pale golden pillar of light. By the way, I have one last thing to remind you. Sherwin Xing suddenly thought of something. The young man stopped and looked at him together with everyone else. Sherwin Xing nodded slightly and smiled faintly. Good luck to you. Hearing this, everyone suddenly had an impulse to curse. He thought it was something important, so the atmosphere was very tense. The corner of the young man's eyes twitched slightly and then he snorted in his heart. Then he moved and went directly into the teleportation circle, turning into a flowing light and disappearing. Everyone followed him in an orderly manner. They took the task scroll in an orderly manner and went to the assessment site of the first round through the small teleportation circle. Let's form a team later. Hua Shue's mind was full of strange ideas. What's wrong? Are you afraid? She smiled while playing the zither. No. Hua Shue shrugged. She just finished her sentence and then changed her words. Actually, I'm a little afraid. Although Hua Shui was a 9th grade advanced rune master, she was mainly proficient in the field of alchemy. Fighting was not her forte. Furthermore, she was usually with a few of her sisters. Suddenly being alone made her a little nervous. I told you to put more effort into cultivation. Now you know fear. I'm in charge of medical treatment. Don't worry. I won't leave you behind. You're such a coward. Nongqi sighed helplessly. With her perception, even if they were separated by the teleportation circle, she could still find Hua Shui in the shortest time possible. There were fewer and fewer people in front. Soon, it was Chu Hen's group's turn. You guys go first. I'll be the last, Chu Hen said. Okay. Tingxian took the task scroll from Sherwin Xing and the others before entering the teleportation circle. Hua Shui, I'll wait for you in front, Lu Qi said. Lu Qi had been living with the four of them at Suiyuan Peak, and their relationship had improved a lot. Okay. Hua Shui smiled sweetly. Then, Fuqin, Nongqi, Jishu, and Hua Shui took the task scrolls and left one after another. When Chu Hen went up to take the scroll, everyone on the stone platform looked at him meaningfully. In the past few days, Chu Hen was considered a celebrity in the Thousand Crane sect. He was also the first new disciple in history to defeat 2 palace disciples in a row. However, Chu Hen could clearly sense that there seemed to be a certain gaze that wasn't particularly friendly. Chu Hen looked up and met Ko Tianqin's indifferent gaze. There were some faint sparks flying in the air. The other party's eyes clearly contained some provocation and disdain. He didn't seem to have offended Ko Tianqin. Why was he being treated coldly for no reason? Although he was puzzled, Chu Hen didn't show too much emotion. He casually grabbed a scroll. However, at this moment, Ko Tianqin suddenly picked up a scroll and smiled with interest. Junior brother Chu Hen, do you want this? Take it. As he finished speaking, Ko Tianqin directly threw the scroll in his hand towards Chu Hen. It left a series of afterimages in the air. The speed at which the scroll flew was extremely fast. Chu Hen's pupils slightly shrank. He raised his hand and with a "pa" sound, he firmly caught the scroll in his hand. The moment the scroll entered his hand, a fierce force surged into Chu Hen's body. His entire arm instantly felt sore and swollen. Everyone present was stunned by this sudden scene. Chu Hen's eyes darkened slightly, and a trace of anger surged out of his brows. What's wrong? Junior brother Chu Hen, is there something else? Ko Tianqin asked coldly. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He replied calmly, It's nothing. Thank you for sending me off, senior brother Ko. Haha, you're welcome. We're from the same sect. Oh, I was wrong. We're not from the same sect yet. We will be. Chu Hen smiled and didn't say anything else. He turned around and entered the teleportation array. Seeing that Chu Hen had been teleported away, Sherwan Xing smiled playfully. He's a love rival. I can understand. I've said it before. He's not worthy. Ko Tianxin's eyes shone with a sharp light. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen was teleported from the ancient city to a vast mountain range. Mang Mountain Forest. It was a famous death zone. Demonic beasts roamed freely, and there were many dangerous places. In the distance, the forest was lush and the mountains were undulating. The roars of all kinds of fierce beasts reverberated between heaven and earth. Chu Hen swept his gaze across his surroundings. The area that his gaze could see was only himself. The teleportation array was random. The newcomers who participated in the assessment would not be gathered together. Chu Hen tightly clenched his fist, which was holding onto the mission scroll. Then, he loosened it. After repeating it a few times, he let out a deep breath and muttered to himself, "That Ko Tianxin's attacks are really heavy." The scroll that Ko Tianxin had casually tossed out contained a tremendous amount of power. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Hen's body was much stronger than ordinary people, his arm would have been broken by the force. There was no hatred in this world for no reason. There had to be a reason for Ko Tianxin to suddenly show off his power like this. It seems that I need to be careful. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes. He didn't need to think too much about it. He opened the scroll in his hand. There was a map and a simple instruction on the scroll. Kill 10 demonic beasts of level 5 and above level 5 demonic beasts? Chu Hen couldn't help but shake his head and smile. This was really simple. Chapter 426. Boom! Along with an incomparably ferocious force surged out, a terrifying shockwave spread out like a meteorite. A huge rage bear, dozens of meters tall, was flung away. The powerful impact sent its huge body crashing into a hill. Shrubs were crushed into pieces, and rocks flew everywhere. A huge pit appeared on the ground, and more than half of the hill collapsed on the spot. I'm done with the 10th one, swoosh. A dazzling silver light streaked across the sky and landed next to the rage bear's carcass. It's really easy. Chu Hen raised his brows. The first round's mission was to kill 10 spirit beasts of 5th grade and above. Along the way, every high-grade spirit beast was killed by Chu Hen with a single punch. After all, his overall level was much higher than the newcomers, so this level of challenge was not difficult at all. Buzz! Chu Hen raised his hand, and with a flash of white light, he put the rage bear's carcass into his storage tool. Then, he took out the mission scroll. There was a map on the scroll, and the coordinates of the trial's transfer station were marked on it. After determining a rough direction, Chu Hen's body moved, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the horizon. The vast and boundless Mang Mountain Forest was like a vast green ocean. The undulating mountain range exuded a mysterious and profound aura. On the way to the examinations transfer station, Chu Hen saw quite a few other newcomers who were currently fighting with monstrous beasts. In reality, for the majority of newcomers, killing 10 spirit beasts of rank 5 and above was not an easy task. Chu Hen casually looked for Hua Shui, Qi Ting, and the others. However, he did not see any familiar figures. After a simple search failed, Chu Hen did not deliberately look for them. With their strength, Chu Hen was not worried that there would be any problems. In the first round of the trial, the strongest spirit beasts were only 7th grade spirit beasts. There was not even a single 8th grade or 9th grade spirit beast. The 1,000 crane sex test for newcomers was also based on a specific standard. Although it was difficult, they would not deliberately send you to your death. After a while, Chu Hen arrived at an empty plain. About 2 miles ahead, there was an ancient city. This city was a bit more magnificent than the ancient city from before, but it was also dilapidated and simple, with broken walls everywhere. Looking from afar, there was a middle-aged man with a calm aura standing on the city wall. On his left was a long table with a pile of unopened scrolls. Looking at Chu Hen's approaching figure, the middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of surprise. Hua! Chu Hen steadily flashed to the top of the city wall and asked with a more polite tone, "Is this the examination transfer station?" "That's right." The middle-aged man nodded. "You're the first to arrive here. Give me the mission scroll." Chu Hen nodded his head, then handed over the mission scroll in his hand to the other party. The middle-aged man opened the scroll and said, "Kill 10 spirit beasts at the 5th grade or above. This mission is quite difficult." His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when Chu Hen waved his hand, and then an expanse of dazzling white light flashed. In an instant, the corpses of demon beasts were piled all over the ground before them. "What?" The middle-aged man was shocked. He glanced over and noticed that all the demon beasts had been blasted to the point they were unrecognizable, and fresh blood was still flowing from them. Obviously, they'd just died not too long ago. The corners of the middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly while slight praise surged out from the space between his brows. All of them had actually been killed with a single strike. "What's your name?" As he asked this question, he withdrew a golden book and opened it to reveal a list of names. "Chu Hen." "Oh? You're that Chu Hen who defeated Meng Hong?" The middle-aged man was even more surprised. Chu Hen smiled and said, "I was just lucky." The middle-aged man seemed to appreciate Chu Hen's humble attitude. He nodded in satisfaction and found Chu Hen's name on the golden book. He tapped on it with his finger, and in the next instant, Chu Hen's name became especially bright. As for the other names, they were dimmer. "Congratulations on becoming an official disciple of our sect." The man smiled warmly and said, "Next, you have 2 choices. You can receive a new mission scroll and take the inner disciple assessment, or you can return to the sect through that teleportation formation." The middle-aged man pointed to a bright light pillar on the left. The light pillar was about 5 meters wide, and golden light patterns flowed on top and bottom. It pierced into the sky and looked like a passageway leading to the Sky Palace. "Give me a new mission scroll," Chu Hen answered without hesitation. The middle-aged man wasn't surprised at all. He raised his hand and made a pleased gesture. "Choose for yourself." Chu Hen nodded and walked to the side of the long table. He picked up the nearest scroll. He unfurled the scroll and saw a new map and a new mission sign. "Extract the blood essence of the giant lava rock beast." Giant lava rock beast? Chu Hen raised his eyelids slightly and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. "What mission is it?" the middle-aged man asked curiously. Chu Hen casually pointed the scroll at the other party. "Giant lava rock beast. This is a troublesome existence among the level 1 beast kings. However, I believe that it shouldn't be a problem for you," the middle-aged man said with determination. Chu Hen smiled and said, "I hope so. Go. You'll enter the inner disciple assessment area. 4 hours later, the second round of assessment will officially begin. In other words, you might meet some of the older official disciples of our sect. They are also taking the assessment to become an inner disciple." The assessments of the various levels were closely linked and progressed in an orderly manner. The first round was the assessment for new disciples to become official disciples. Once a batch of new disciples became official disciples, they could follow the older official disciples to accept missions and assessments and attempt to become an inner disciple. In order to allow the new disciples and the older disciples to have a better synchronization, the next round of assessment would officially begin 4 hours later. Therefore, the next round of assessment would officially begin 4 hours after the first person successfully ascended to the inner disciple rank. It was a simple principle. Once the first person successfully ascended to the inner disciple rank, there would definitely be a large number of new disciples completing their missions within the next 4 hours. At that time, the next round of assessment would begin. Then, the new disciples and the older disciples would mix together and participate in the next round of assessment together. Of course, the Thousand Crane sect would also make adjustments according to the circumstances during the assessment. The sect was very experienced in dealing with such matters. In a sense, these 4 hours are an additional reward for you. You can choose to rest, or you can search for the giant lava rock beast to complete your mission, the middle-aged man reminded him. Generally speaking, the first person to complete a mission would choose to rest for 4 hours. That way, they would be in a better state for the next round of assessment. However, with Chu Hen's strength, he clearly didn't need to rest. Got it! Immediate success. Thank you. Chu Hen didn't stay here for long. He soared into the sky again and headed towards the second round of the inner court exam. The Thousand Crane sect's exam area gradually extended towards the depths of the forest. The deeper one went, the more dangerous it would be, and the stronger the demon beasts one would encounter would be. Because Chu Hen was the first new disciple to enter the exam area, he could only see the boundless forest and all sorts of formidable demon beasts. Giant lava rock beast. Chu Hen muttered softly to himself. Both its offensive and defensive abilities were extremely shocking, and it could be considered as a top-rate existence amongst Grade 1 beast kings. It was even to the extent that some Grade 2 demon beasts didn't dare rashly offend it. Of course, Chu Hen didn't take it seriously at all. The only difficulty he faced was that the giant lava rock beast wasn't easy to find. Compared to the first round of the newcomer exam, the second round of the exam was clearly much more difficult. The inner court disciples of the Thousand Crane sect had to possess a certain level of courage and adaptability. The giant lava rock beast is a fire element beast king. I presume it should be in a rather hot area,